It is 5:15. We are in the Tom Baker meeting room. This is the Board of City Commissions, July 22nd meeting. We have Chaplain Herr is here.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the beauty of the day. We thank you for your protection over us, especially in these past days and weeks with the storms. And we are grateful for the rain which you have provided. And we pray for continued help and strength as we continue to move forward. It reveals to us, Father, that you are all-powerful and you are in control. And so we pause before this meeting to acknowledge that. We thank you for giving us this community to be a part of. And I would ask and pray that you would guide the time of this as a city commission meets, as they discuss, as they deliberate, as decisions are made, and they continue to move forward. Thank you for the great community that you have given to us. Thank you for those who serve us, our commissioners. We think specifically as well of our first responders. We thank you for our fire department, our medical ambulance crews. We thank, Lord, of the police that patrol and help to keep us safe. And we're mindful, even in this day, of honoring the chief who has served us well, and we're grateful for that. And we pray, Lord, as we look forward to a new person to step into that role, that you would strengthen and utilize them to continue the great work that has been done throughout this community. We offer this time before you. You are our God. We pray that we would submit ourselves to your leading. In the name of Christ, I pray. Amen.
All right, we will call the meeting to order. We'll call roll.
Commissioner Risch?
Here.
Commissioner Zenker?
Here.
Commissioner Connolly?
Here.
Mayor Schmitz?
Here.
Chair Cleary?
Here. All right. First and foremost, we have the recognition of Police Chief Dave Drayevich. So, Dave, I'm going to ask you to come up, if you will. And I'm gonna, unless you want to speak first, I'm gonna let your portfolio holder take the wheel. But I believe Jason has a slideshow he's gonna play while Commissioner Risch speaks.
Well, congratulations, Chief, on making it to retirement. I'm from the railroad industry, and we say when somebody retires, he's pulling the pin. There's a pin between each car. You pull the pin, and the car rolls off into the sunset. But I want to thank you for your service. You've made a tremendous impact on the department and the safety of our community, and I'm grateful for that. The chief started his career in 1989, 14 years on patrol. From 2003 to 2006, he was a patrol supervisor and became a lieutenant in 2006, deputy chief in 2013, and chief of police in 2018. So we got about 7 years out of you anyway. As police chief, Chief Drayevich led the department in implementing body-worn cameras, upgraded ballistic protection, launched a drone program, and adopted intelligence-led policing. He also led the department in 2021 and 2025 for reaccreditation process for the Commission on Accreditation of Law Enforcement Agencies, called CELA, the gold standard for credentialing public safety agencies. And we're the only police department in the state, correct?
No, Grand Forks and
Okay, well, I stole a little thunder. But it's very difficult to get this, and I was interviewed actually as part of the process. And you've got to be a top-shelf police force, playing by all the rules and proper procedures and everything like that to get that recognition. A proud K-9 handler during his patrol years, Chief Drayevich worked closely with K-9 partners Bo and Kodiak and was widely regarded as a cornerstone of the patrol division, where he spent much of his career. He loves dogs, and he's told me numerous times, I don't dare go out to the pound because I might bring home I might adopt another dog, so appreciate that. The chief is a public servant in on the force, but he's also a public service in other ways. He serves as a mentor for runners against destructive decisions, promoting healthy activities and providing social support for referrals from drug court and residents of the Missouri River Correction Center. It's an incredible commitment, showing up several hours a week on his off time and never calling attention to himself. But time goes on like it always does, and even good guys like Chief Dreyevich gets to retire. But your positive impact on the police department and our community will be felt long after you retire. As a citizen, and certainly as a commissioner, thank you for your service, and I wish you all the best as you enter this next chapter of your life.
Thank you.
I'm not going to follow that with much, Chief, but I did want to just say thank you. You've made my time on this commission very pleasant. Working with you has always been so great, and you've really shown through your actions that you care about every individual in this community, which is so valuable in your role. You've also been with the Bismarck Police Department for as long as I've been alive. So I just realized that with the date. So 1989, best year out there. So it is awesome to see, and I've just really been thankful for the time that I've gotten to spend with you in different facets with the Homeless Coalition, from the Budget Committee. You are just truly invaluable and will be missed.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm not sure what to say right now, other than the fact that, it's been an honor and a privilege to serve here in Bismarck, and I'm so thankful that I was chosen all those years ago. I can tell you just about, I've had more fun than a person should be allowed to have. It's just been that kind of a career for me, and I'm appreciative of the citizens of Bismarck. They support our department immensely, and not all the communities have that support, and we work very hard to earn that support. And I know we'll continue to do that as a department. So your guys are going to be in good hands, and thank you for everything that's happened. So.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, more exciting stuff. Next up, we have the 2024 Humanitarian Award presentations, which I think Sargiana is going to do for us.
My name is Sargiana Woodsky, and I am the chairperson of the Bismarck Human Relations Committee. And we are here tonight to give away or to present the 3 humanitarian awards. The Bismarck Human Relations Committee is an advisory committee to the city, appointed by the mayor. We embrace the diversity of our community while working to ensure Bismarck is inclusive and accessible to all. A little bit about the Humanitarian Award. It is a yearly award given out. This year, it is given to an adult individual, an organization, and a youth individual. And this is the first year we've given an award out to a youth individual. The Humanitarian Award honors those who educate, identify, protect, and promote personal dignity, aiming to eliminate discriminatory barriers that prevent individuals from reaching their full potential. And on behalf of the committee, this was not an easy decision at all. As far as applications, we see how many amazing people are in our community that could meet any of these awards. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over a little bit about each individual and the organization that has won the award. After we're done talking about each of them, we then will go into a picture with each of them as well.
All right. So I am Katie Houle, a member of the Human Relations Committee. I'm really excited to tell you about Lauren Zent. She's been named the 2024 and the City of Bismarck's first Youth Humanitarian of the Year. Rob Pesky submitted the nomination. Lauren has worked extensively with individuals with special needs through both volunteer and paid roles. She has volunteered with United Sound, a program that teaches music to students with disabilities and provides respite care through Pride, Inc. In addition to her scheduled duties, Lauren often uses her own time and resources to support the individuals she works with. She organizes community outings such as trips to North Dakota's Gateway to Science and maintains relationships with clients outside of work hours. Mr. Pesky, who taught Lauren in orchestra for 8 years, said she has consistently demonstrated leadership and a strong commitment to inclusion. He noted that many individuals she supported attended her graduation party, reflecting the deep connection she has formed in the special needs community. Lauren plans to pursue a degree in special education and continue advocating for individuals with disabilities, and I hopefully returning back to Bismarck. No pressure, Lauren. She regularly seeks opportunities to educate others, promote human rights, and foster a more inclusive community. When Lauren learned that she would receive this award, she shared, quote, "I truly enjoy what I do and the people I work with, so I'm honored to receive this award. My hope is that this recognitions like this inspire others to play their part in building a more accepting and inclusive community." Congratulations, Lauren.
Good evening. I'm Betsy Czar, a member of the Human Relations Committee. This evening, I'm going to help present Micah Stokeland with the Adult 2024 City of Bismarck Humanitarian of the Year Award. This award was submitted by Carrie Beck. Micah is a military human resource specialist with the North Dakota Army National Guard. She's volunteered with Designer Jeans for the past 4 years. The nonprofit organization based in Bismarck, Mandan supports individuals with Down syndrome and their families. Micah organizes private events for families with children ages 2 to 6 who have Down syndrome, creating an inclusive environment where families can connect, share resources, and access peer support. Her efforts have helped strengthen Designer Jeans community outreach and programming. Micah also supports the organization's advocacy work, including the annual Walk for Down Syndrome. She helps raise awareness about Down syndrome and promotes inclusion through her volunteer work. In addition to her community involvement, Micah serves full-time in the North Dakota National Guard and is a mother of 3. When Micah learned that she received this award, she shared, and I quote, "I accept this award with full heart, not because I feel I deserve it, but because it shines a light on my beautiful Down syndrome community and my incredible mom tribe. You are the ones who show me what real strength and unconditional love looks like. You fight battles no one sees and love harder than anyone can imagine. To the women who wipe tears, celebrate every milestone, and hold each other through the hardest days, you fight quietly, fiercely, and you show up every single day without applause. I'm standing here because you stand beside me. The honor is truly yours." Congratulations, Micah.
I am Tia Jorgensen, also a member of the Human Relations Committee. I'm up here to tell you a little bit about YouthWorks. They are the recipient of the 2024 Humanitarian of the Year Award as an agency. Emily Yanish and Aaron Oban nominated the organization. Former Executive Director Melanie Heitkamp is representing YouthWorks for their work through 2024, and Mark Heinert is the current Executive Director. YouthWorks, a nonprofit organization, provides safe spaces where young people feel heard and supported. The organization follows the positive youth development philosophy, using a strengths-based approach that emphasizes safety, positive adult relationships, and opportunities for youth to contribute to their communities. YouthWorks has built a diverse and compassionate team committed to providing inclusion, non-judgmental support to all youth. Staff members serve on community boards, coalitions, and advisory groups where they advocate for youth and raise awareness about their needs and strengths. In addition to its system-level work, YouthWorks helps young people advocate for themselves, identify goals, and overcome barriers. The organization serves as a critical resource for marginalized youth, offering guidance and support that helps them succeed. Mark Heinert shared, "We're honored to be recognized by the City of Bismarck's Human Relations Committee for our work with local youth and young adults. This award shows that Bismarck values its young people, and that means a great deal to us. Our mission is to ensure they have a safe place where they feel they belong and are heard." Congratulations, YouthWorks.
Hi, my name is Joan Klein. I'm also with the Human Relations Committee. And right now, I wanted to congratulate all the Humanitarian Award winners, Lauren Zent, Micah Stokeland, and YouthWorks. Congratulations once more. And would like for them to come up as in order. Lauren Zent first to take photographs. Micah Stokeland, can you please come up? And YouthWorks would come up.
All right, that brings us to public comment. Public comment is restricted to items on the consent agenda, regular agenda, or prior city commission agenda excluding public hearing items. Anyone who wishes to speak for public comment, please come forward, state your name, fill out the form on the podium. Again, this is public comment period. Anyone who wishes to speak, please come to the podium. Second call for public comment.
I wasn't going to go up first.
Well, go ahead.
But,
It doesn't look
okay,
like there's
if you're
anybody
okay,
else.
I think you know me on a little bit from
Yes.
2023 Citizen Academy. I guess, yeah, that's the only one, other one. You were the only one that was there. Mayor Smith was there too. Yeah, the points I made during that. I should have my clock going here.
Can you state your name for the record,
Oh,
though?
Michael J. Walsh. Is do you need the address? Yeah, I got it. I already signed up here.
Perfect.
Yeah, okay. So, anyway, my public comment is that I was hoping that it'd be a little more open when it comes to choosing the new police chief, because it's such a key job, and I guess, some people could have shed some light, including myself, and I'm not out for any kind of personal attack or anything like that. But I just, based on what my experience during the 2023 Citizens Academy, some things that I had brought up. So I'm just saying that there's some where the police department fell short. Whether the guy from Grand Forks is the better solution, it could be new blood. I'd be leaning towards him. But I'm not overly criticizing whatever, but there are some things that, like I brought up during the October 8th meeting, that were valid, and I still stand behind them. And I did have, my biggest point that I wanted to make, maybe I wasn't clear enough then, but I want to make sure I'm clear now, is there needs to be some kind of oversight no matter who's the police chief. It needs to be better, I guess, the county, and then there's state to be, they got that new crime lab up there, but it still comes down to the quality of the people, what's in their heart. And I think most of the chaplains agree with. One of the things, like when I was down there with the 2023 Citizen Academy in the spring there, not that long ago, the sharpshooter, they can't miss because of the laser, so I got sharpshooter. I mean, I didn't deserve it. My brother was over Vietnam, and he got sharp. He deserved it, but not me. But they can't miss because with that laser. But the point I want to make is, when I walked, I brought up a few things. I'm not, when they were presenting and that, it was like I had some valid things, and I was telling the truth 100%. And I don't know what Jason Stugemeyer is going to do. He's not the same person. And I'm not downgrading. I mean, he's got a lot of positives. Dave Draw. In fact, I had a wonderful conversation with him about when we had, I think it was our 7th or 8th out of 10 laundry carts at the King Coin Laundry and dog and car wash. So we had, and they're almost $300 a piece. And I told him, well, that's a little thing, but we always did get it back because of our connections with the people who went in there. They anonymously let us know a little bit, but it took a long time, and it took a lot of time to get it back. There's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes that the police don't, this community effort. But anyway, what I did have, but he kind of said that, our officers would never do anything, and I gave him real mild examples, at a Citizens Academy, and I didn't want to be a smart aleck. I could have said, are you traveling down that river in Africa? Denial, but I didn't do that, because there was other participants there. But one thing that bothered me on the way out, and I think the police chaplains agree with me. I actually know Dan Sweeney kind of personally, if he still is. But anyway, I think they agree with me. When I walked out of there, based on, I have a lot of experience. In 1960, I was 9 years old, and I got in on little skirmishes, with little things that we had to correct with the police department. There was a great policewoman at that time, and so yeah, my mother and my dad, so they were my biggest mentors. But anyway, so long story short, like in 1972, too, I became partner with my dad. So he pretty much turned everything over to me in terms of handling. He made sure, make sure you have a police report, make sure you, paper trail type of thing, you know. So they were, so to get to the point, you know, so even after that and stuff, so I know what it's like to have a connection where the police are, you know, it's a joint partnership between the police and the business, small business owner, you know, and even I feel for sometimes the smaller apartment owners a little bit, you know, I invested a little bit even though I'm a little older, and I'd like to, you know, with my business, you know, we were talking retirement stuff quite a bit. Yeah, I'm 73, going to be 74, but I'm in great health, and my brother's in better health. I think he's 80, but anyway. So, and we put in a great garden together, but, so anyway, so, you know, the business, you know, I'm at that transition stage where I want to get, you know, out of it. So I kind of have, because of the housing problem, I kind of set up for a little housing thing, you know, close by, you know, my business. And it's partially because it'd be more amenable in case someone of my help needed housing or something, you know, and so, and then there's other considerations, you know. So the police have to be partners with those people, and they can't take the business people too lightly, and the same thing with Jason Tomanek over there. And also small apartment owners and that, and they don't get any tax credit on the apartment. Okay, I don't know how I'm doing on time.
I just want to keep you on topic, Michael.
Okay,
if you could circle back to the,
I'll circle back to
police chief hiring.
Okay, I'll get right to the point.
Thank you.
I'll get right to the point, and I'll end it now too, because I think I'm getting close to the 5.
You are at 5, but I will give you some leniency if you can stay on topic,
thank you very
please.
much. Yeah, because I don't want somebody to exaggerate, especially if they're interrupting me. You didn't, though. Okay, so anyway, when I walked out of the police academy, one thing that bothered me, and like crazy, you know, I made sure that, I'm pretty sure that Jason heard me, and there was Jason Tomanek, and I said, you know, sometimes, you know, over the years, I've experienced where the police need to police each other, you know, and all of a sudden, you know, the other people walking out, I don't think you were one of them, but they were like, oh, you know, they're like scared, you know, it was like, oh, you know, and I don't think that's a good dynamic. That's too much like, you know, progressive statism, and too much like the careerists just have all the sway, you know, instead of, you know, so many of the elected things are too close to being selected, you know, depending upon how the media is doing and how the information gets out there, like for judges and
Okay, Michael.
whatever. Okay, so that wraps it up.
I
think most
appreciate
of the chaplains would agree with me. We don't want things to be too fear-driven.
Thank you.
Okay, God bless you. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael.
Second call for public comment. This is the public comment period. Third and final call for public comment. The public comment period is now closed. Next is the consent agenda. Any discussion on the consent agenda? Commissioner Zinker.
I have one item that I need to just bring to everybody's attention. That is item L2, to award the contract to bids for the library project. In Steve's report, it's correct.
Okay.
It's Northern Plains Plumbing and Heating. And then on NTEX, they have Northern Plains Heating and Air. I work for Northern Plains Heating and Air. We did not bid the project. We are no part of this project, so I just want to bring that to everybody and shed light on that so we don't get any issues.
Just some
later on.
clarification.
Yep.
Sounds
Yep.
good.
Yep. Other than that, with that, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Go ahead and call roll.
Commissioner Zinker?
Yes.
Commissioner Connolly?
Yes.
Mayor Schmitz?
Yes.
Commissioner Risch?
Yes.
Chair Cleary?
Yes. All right, regular agenda, item A, receive update on terminal area study. Matthew.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. I'm here to introduce Jeff Ubel to provide an update on the terminal area study. The last time that we were here was in January, and we provided an update at that time. And there were about 2 items that needed to be completed. One was the preferred alternative concept, and the other was the financial plan. The concept has been, over the last month, reworked and finalized, so we have that to show this evening. And then we are in the final stages of the financial plan. We have a rough magnitude of cost that we're using, but we're now in the details, working with the consultant on that, and we're close to finishing that up as well. So we felt this was a good time to have Jeff present the findings of the study. And with that, I'll turn it over to Jeff.
Good evening, Commissioner Clary, Commissioners. It's a pleasure to be here today. I'm going to... Okay. So as Matt mentioned, we were here in January. We promised at that time we would be back to present a final update on the terminal area planning study, which we're doing today. As Matt mentioned, the planning study is in the final stages, and I'll talk here just a couple minutes about the remaining steps. Our agenda is going to be pretty simple. I know you have a full agenda as well, and so I'll move through this as efficiently as I possibly can. I know somewhere Greg is watching and keeping time for me, and I'm sure I'll get a text message at any point if I go too long. So we are going to do just a little bit of a review to set the context for this so that you understand it when we move into talking about the alternatives, the preferred alternatives, and the rough order of magnitude costs that we're looking at this planning level. So first, on the planning side, I provide this graphic. It gives you a little bit of insight into some of the data that's collected in terms of the forecasting. I like it just simply because there's a couple of things that are worth noting on this that are really easy to see. One, as a reference, the terminal opened in May of 2005, so a little over 20 years ago now. Since that time on this chart, you see that there's been a regular amount of growth in employments. Employments essentially are passenger boardings at the airport. So the airport has seen good growth over the last 20 years. The only real dip being that big dip that happened in 2020, which I think every airport in the entire country had a dip in 2020. And so I found it just interesting to see how far the airport's come over the last 20 years. In 2019, you'll see on here, the airport reached a record level of employments at 309,000, and so that's really set a new benchmark for the airport. I think the other thing worth noting is from 2020 to where we are today in 2024, you can see that the airport has recovered, or is definitely on the road to a strong recovery from the 2020 COVID year, wrapping up in 2024 with 294,000 employments. And even looking forward to 2025, the airport's on track to certainly match, if not exceed, its 2019 numbers. And so I think this graphic does a good job of showing that. The reason I like this is because that red line, or I'm not sure what color that line is, but that line that cuts through the chart represents 240,000 employments. When the airport opened in 2005, that was what the number was that was used to design the terminal at that point. And so I point that out simply to say that from 2014 on, the terminal has slowly started to exceed that 2,000, or the airport has slowly started to exceed that 240,000 employments on an annual basis. Now, that doesn't translate directly into meaning that more space is needed, but it gives you an indication that the airport, with the growth that it's experiencing, is going to start to feel a little bit of pain. And anecdotally, if anybody traveled in 2019, you could feel the congestion happening in the terminal at that point. This next graph is really the telling graph, and there's a lot going on here. But what I can tell you is that the planners and the forecasters that put this information together, along with all of the data they collect, it's a very robust process that ultimately leads to this chart that I put up here in front of you, which is a representative of what they call peak hour employments. And so the way this chart works is on the left-hand side, you have a number of passengers from 0 to 600. On the bottom, you'll see 24 hours of the day. And these jagged lines that go across there indicate a certain amount of employments that happen over that 24-hour period. Peak hour employments is ultimately the metric that feeds into determining what the terminal program is going to look like. So this is a big and important piece. Just to go through this very briefly, that the solid lines that you see there represent a baseline peak hour employments. Now, what's important to know about this is this does not represent the busiest day of the year. The methodologies that are used for planning ensure that this baseline is based off of not even so much an average, but a particular time of day and month so that you have a good foundation to use as a base. So this doesn't represent the busiest time of the year, and it doesn't necessarily represent the average, but it establishes a base understanding of what's happening at the airport. And so you'll see that the peak that happens roughly between that 9:30 and 11 a.m., we're looking at about 231 employments at the base level. These other colored lines represent different milestones within the 20-year planning horizon, with the darkest line representing 2043, which is the final year of our planning horizon, at which point you see that we're predicting right around 402 employments, which is creates a significant impact on the terminal. That starts to tell us the size of spaces relative to ticketing, to baggage screening, the TSA security checkpoint, the departure lounges, all those things that are impacted by the passenger experience. What may not necessarily be revealed on here is that peak hour fluctuates. There's a lot of things that influence that. The two biggest ones which we've noted is that additional air service clearly is going to have an impact on your peak hour employments. But a big one, and one that I think is most dramatically affecting the Bismarck Airport right now, is what we call upgauging. And we talked about that at our last meeting. That's when air carriers bring in larger aircraft or more seats, those people, or it creates a bigger influx of people into the terminal at a given point. And Bismarck's going through that process right now with the current air carriers. And so those are the pieces that influence the forecast the most. And like I said, this is what really influences the space program or the terminal program. One question that we get asked a lot about this chart, and specifically we got asked by the Airport Advisory Committee, and I think Commissioner Risch may have even asked this question at one point, is we do have downtimes within the peak hour. You see, like, for instance, 8 a.m. where there's nothing happening at the terminal. Why don't we just shift arrivals and departures particularly around to fill those empty spots in lieu of adding on to the terminal? The reality of that situation is that the air carriers make all the decisions in terms of when their departures and arrivals are going to occur. The airport cannot influence that at all. And the air carriers do it just based on whatever their business model might be. If you can just imagine flying out of Bismarck, a lot of people have to fly at that 5, 6 a.m. in order to make connecting flights, and that's all about the science that goes into determining when departures leave Bismarck. And so that's why you see those little dips on this 24-hour chart. But I think it's important to note that the Bismarck Airport really can't influence that. This next chart, so as we start gathering this data and we have an understanding of the peak hour, we start looking at other things that may influence the terminal. This is a graphic that we've shown before. I think it's a pretty good one. It's essentially based on establishing an optimum level of service, which, if you look at it or think about it from this perspective, is how can we efficiently move people through the terminal, whether they're either departing or whether they're arriving, to help improve that experience from a passenger level. And so the top portion of this walks you through the process of departure. What we're looking at here is optimizing the amount of time that it takes for somebody to move through those spaces and understanding the space per passenger that helps to manage that. And so what we don't want to do is find ourselves in a situation where we make an improvement to the airport and we have a sub-optimum level that then creates bigger issues down the road, particularly as the airport continues to grow. And so this is more or less a benchmark that we use to check the terminal program as we start going through the process and to provide some guidance. So we saw this last time as well. This is the terminal facility requirements. This chart more or less is showing us a couple of different things. Again, on the left-hand side, you see the major spaces of the terminal. Across the top, you see 3 different years, 2023 being kind of our baseline starting point. 2033 is a midpoint of the plan, and 2043 is the conclusion of our 20-year planning period. What we're looking at is are there deficiencies within the airport in terms of just on a square footage basis that we need to recognize. Under the 2033 category, you'll see that we have an existing column. That existing column identifies all the spaces that currently exist within the terminal. And as you start working towards the right, you'll see that we have some recommended spaces in 2033. So if we were to take the terminal in its current condition and adjust it to reflect the growth, what would be the difference in space that we would need? And you'll see that we've identified on the bottom here a deficit today of nearly 10,000 square feet. And this is now, that category is now even a year old. So going forward, you'll see that that deficit continues to grow, particularly as the airport continues to grow. And again, this is all based on a lot of the forecasting numbers that were put together. The 2 biggest areas that I want to point out where the largest deficits are found is one is in the departure lounges. With the upgauging of aircraft, the departure lounges are smaller than what they need to be able to accommodate the number of seats. And the second one is the outbound baggage screening area. This is one area of the terminal going way back to 2005 that has always been undersized. When the terminal was originally opened, TSA was in its infancy. It barely even existed. And so that's a part of the airport that the airport has had to try to manage over the years in order to continue to operate. There are several other areas, but those are the 2 that I wanted to point out. I think it's important to note as we went through this planning process, we did conduct listening sessions with all of the stakeholders in the airport, each of the individual airlines, the car rental folks, the 2 concessionaires that operate in the airport, ground support people, and of course the airport administrative staff. We also had, as a part of their listening sessions, an airport advisory committee that included a handful of people from throughout the community from various different points of interest. We had folks from BPS, University of Mary, Commissioner Risch was on that committee. We had private individuals. These people became our sounding board going forward, but early on in the process, they provided a lot of insight just in terms of their interaction with the airport and some of the issues that they've seen. From the airline's perspective, there was a host of items that were challenges or points of interest that they had in the continued growth of the airport. I would say of the 8 that we have on here, the 2 biggest ones that continuously came up was upgrades to the inbound and outbound baggage system. Again, like I mentioned, it's very small. There's a lot of congestion and a lot of challenges in managing the movement of bags. And then the second one was parking spaces for aircraft that are parked overnight or that remain here overnight. Having the capacity to be able to park those planes at gates makes the whole process a lot easier. And in some cases, the airlines don't have the capacity locally to be able to move those planes, so parking them at the gates is important. A lot of these other items were small, I would say technical items, but they were certainly issues that the airport or that the airlines identified. This is just a graphic that represents those areas that we know or that we've identified that have had some challenges going forward. Certainly the concessions, baggage claim, inbound baggage. As I mentioned, I think the 2 biggest ones on here are the outbound baggage areas and the departure lounges, but it gives you a sense that these spaces are all scattered throughout the terminal. and which creates challenges up and down and across the terminal. Going forward, as we continue to look at improvements to the airport, we start taking into consideration other things that help improve and help create a better environment for the traveling public, and certainly inclusive design aspects fit that category. These are some of the considerations that we put in place when we look at the airport program, whether it be additional spaces that don't currently exist there, like a sensory room, a dedicated mother's room. Right now they have the pod up on the second floor, and the service animal relief area. As it sits today, the mother's room and the service animal relief area are requirements for the airport, and so the airport has been navigating through those two issues, but I suspect in the future with an expansion, those things will be required.
Madam
Commissioner
Chair.
Risch?
Can you explain what a sensory room is?
Yeah, so a sensory room is for folks that have, we'll call it a variety of different disabilities related to overstimulation, anxiousness, nervousness, those types of things, that almost becomes a calming space, if you will. Other considerations that we've looked at, and these are things that you're starting to see more often in airports: outdoor spaces, improvements to wayfinding. Certainly passengers feel much more comfortable if they know where they're going in the terminal. Modifications to restrooms, additional concessions opportunities or revenue generating opportunities, and design features that have incorporated themselves into terminals. Design has a big influence on people's, not only their understanding of the community when they arrive. I mean, we hear that frequently when people come into the Bismarck Airport, how shocked they are that that's the terminal that we have here. But also the comfort level that they have within the airport. So we take all of that information and we disseminate that down into conceptual terminal alternatives. What we're trying to do here is look at how do we, without getting too granular on it, how do we start to lay out what an expansion might look like to accommodate all of these issues that we've identified, along with some other things that we want to take into consideration. So in this case, we want to look at how is the terminal going to adapt to larger aircraft, not only the aircraft that's currently coming in, but the next generation of larger aircraft. What's the impact that that's going to have in terms of gate spacing, parking, those sorts of things. We wanted to explore options for swing gate operations. So this is an instance where you may have one passenger boarding bridge and have two aircraft parking spaces. That gives the airport flexibility in terms of their gate operations. We took a look at construction phasing. This is important from two perspectives. One is obviously the airport needs to be fully functioning and operational during any type of expansion, but also phasing helps offset some of the complexity that often comes along with funding airport projects. In other words, phasing can give us some off-ramps if we need to align with funding. We looked at future flexibility. So as I mentioned, our planning horizon was 20 years. Well, we don't want to just stop there. We wanted to look at beyond that 20-year horizon, what's the direction that the airport's going to go so that the airport can continue to plan other projects that they have going on so that we don't essentially paint ourselves into a corner somewhere down the road. We looked at optimizing the TSA security checkpoint. Even yesterday, we were having conversations about impending changes that are going to be coming to TSA in the future that may change how we see it today. But more importantly, we wanted to make sure that whatever reconfiguration we made to TSA, we solved all of the current problems and we provided a path forward for additional modifications that may happen to TSA in the future. So we don't want to get to a point where we're all of a sudden coming back now and having to do a major reconstruction to accommodate some change that TSA may put into place. We also looked at landside development, which I'll talk a little bit about, and improved baggage handling. And so from that, we looked at three different alternatives. These alternatives were presented to you before. Alternative one we set out to initially start out with looking at, can we develop an alternative that minimizes apron expansion? And we knew, even at this planning level stage, that this was going to be a costly project. And so if one of the options is to develop a terminal expansion without having to develop apron to go along with that, that would be a cost savings to the airport. And so you'll see alternative one looks at different configurations relative to not expanding the apron at all. And I also want to point out on here too, you'll see that we have 8 aircraft parked. This is a part of the process that we were going through and looking at that future proofing of the alternatives. Alternative 2 looks at minimizing the apron expansion and minimizing impacts to the GA access, or the general aviation access. It's a little bit hard to see on these alternatives, but alternative 1 pushed aircraft further out in towards the taxiway, which impacted access to the general aviation ramps. And so we wanted to look at an alternative that still minimized apron expansion, but also eliminated some of the impacts to the GA ramp. And so you'll see on alternative 2, we're not proposing any apron expansion on the north side, but we are proposing apron expansion on the south side to accommodate that. Alternative 3, as we developed this, looked at minimizing some of the line of sight impacts. So these are line of sight impacts from the tower out to the taxiway and runway. But we also wanted to approach this from the perspective of, can we centralize the terminal building so as passengers interact with the terminal, it feels very similar to the way that it does right now, and you don't have these long distances that you have to move through the terminal from either the concessions or the security checkpoint. And so after our last interaction with the commission, we had a follow-up meeting with the Airport Advisory Committee to get their input on the alternatives. And where we landed, which is, I think, what all of us suspected, is that it would be some combination of all 3 of these, but not one of these in particular. And so we ended up with a hybrid version of all 3 of these. And so the preferred alternative was selected, accomplishes the goal in alternative 1 in that it doesn't impact or require any apron expansion. It accomplishes the goals in alternative 2, which minimizes the impact on the GA access, and it also centralizes the terminal. So I think everybody found something in those alternatives that was important, and we were able to develop that in the preferred alternative. And so you'll see a site plan in a minute to see how this interacts with the site. What I wanted to point out is a couple things. And so this is the departure levels. This is the second level of the terminal. Really, the 2 biggest things that are worth noting here on this plan is, if you see that purple line, you'll kind of see the outline of the existing terminal. It gives you a sense of how big this expansion is relative to the existing terminal. Really, the 2 biggest impacts on the departure levels are the expansion of the departure lounges. So the space required to accommodate 6 gates, which was the determined number in the forecast, and the amount of space that would be required to accommodate those gates and the circulation to those gates. So that's really the bulk of the expansion on this level. The second thing that is probably the most impactful, or that is the most impactful on this level, is the reconfiguration of the TSA checkpoint. You'll see the space in the center of the plan that's labeled TSA queuing and the security checkpoint. What we're proposing in this alternative is to rotate the checkpoint 90 degrees from its current location, and move it into the location that's currently occupied by the airport administration and the cafe. By doing this, it solves a few different problems. One is that now we have adequate space that meets the full extent of the TSA guidelines. So we have the proper amount of queuing off of what I call the bridge. It moves the queuing away from the escalator and the stairs, which on the busiest times you can see that congestion happening there. We provide a proper amount of space for recomposure, or the area after the checkpoint where you used to have to put your shoes back on, or you gather yourself, and it takes all of that space out of the circulation, unlike it is today. This also allows for the ability to add a fourth checkpoint lane without doing a major reconstruction of the terminal. And so this is a big change, but what I would say is a very positive change for the airport now and moving into the future. By doing this, we do have to relocate the airport administration, and so you'll see that on this plan. We're actually consolidating the airport administration in the meeting spaces onto the south end of the terminal. And by doing that, we're relocating the current TSA offices closer to the checkpoint, which is where they really want to be. And then we're creating a lot of different opportunities within the concourse for additional food and beverage and retail and revenue generating opportunities. If we go to the apron level, really a couple things I want to point out here is that as a result of this, there's not a lot of renovation that really needs to happen on this arrival or apron level within the terminal. We're not proposing a lot of changes. There is some expansion and there is some renovation to accommodate some of the needs. And so you'll see on the south end, we're looking at a small addition to expand the airline ticketing offices and the ticketing hall. On the north end, down the road, we're looking at expansion to accommodate a third bag claim device and then reconfiguring the car rental and car rental queuing space so that we eliminate some of the conflict that currently exists there. But really on this level, the bulk of the expansion is focused on the checked baggage screening area and the outbound baggage carousel. And as I mentioned, this is an area that has been undersized for many, many years. In this reconfiguration, there's a lot of positive things that come from this. One is that we create a space that meets the needs of the TSA in terms of checking bags. It allows for redundancy in the check bag system, which currently doesn't exist. And probably most importantly, it eliminates a lot of the congestion that currently happens in this part of the building, which I know is hard to understand because a lot of people don't get to see this piece. But even just having this carousel down here that allows bags to be picked up by multiple tugs minimizes a lot of the problems that currently exist down there. The last little piece, and it seems little, but it's not insignificant, is we are adding receiving to the airport. Currently, the airport does not have a receiving, and so when trucks bring supplies, whether it be to the concessions, they usually park in the ride share or taxi lane and then truck everything into the building, which does create conflicts with passengers and in a challenging situation. So if we look at project phasing, just as a part of continuing to walk through this, we are looking at a 6-phase plan. You see 5 phases on here. I'll show you the 6th phase in a minute, which is the landside development. The first phase is the south departure expansion and outbound baggage. This is really, of all the pieces, this is one of the most significant pieces in that it does add additional gates and it takes care of that outbound baggage piece that's so important. So that would be the first phase. Second phase would be the space to accommodate the new concessions area and some expansion to the departure lounges. Third phase is the TSA checkpoint reconfiguration inside the terminal. And then the fourth phase is really the completion of the departure lounge, which gets us to the full 6th gate build out. And then phase 5 is reconfiguration of really the arrival halls, which is the third claim device and the car rental facilities. And then here's a graphic. This is really documenting phase 6, which is reconfiguration of the landside development. And so here what's being proposed is a realignment of Terminal Boulevard. So that's the loop road that goes around the surface parking. We're looking to push the Terminal Boulevard further to the south, which does a couple things for us. It expands the possibility for surface parking, long-term and short-term parking within the loop, which fends off the necessity for a ramp. It also allows us the ability to extend the curb for drop-offs. The curb has always been a little bit short for departing passengers, and so it helps us improve that situation. And then additionally, we would make some modifications to Jetway Avenue and to the employee parking to now allow for truck traffic and deliveries to the terminal to happen off of Terminal Boulevard. and start to set the stage for future apron expansion, which would happen down the road to get additional aircraft parking. So bear with me. I have this very, very short video that I think will help explain this a little bit better. You'll see the arrival to the terminal, and then some of the road realignment and parking realignment, and then just get at least a little bit of a sense of what the terminal expansion could look like from a volume perspective. And I think if Greg was here, he would hope there would be that much traffic on Terminal Boulevard. All right. So the big question then is with all of this, what's the magnitude of scale in terms of cost? And so we have a third-party cost estimator that developed a budget for us. They do a lot of this aviation work and do a really good job at reorganizing cost. And in this case, we organized it relative to the phases. As I mentioned, the phases provide us off-ramps if necessary, depending upon the budget package. Now, the thing I'll say is if you take all these numbers and you add them together, they won't equal the $160.8 million. The $160.8 million is the all-in cost, and so that includes all of the other costs that are construction-related but not built into the construction. So, for instance, it's going to include your construction management fees, permitting, environmental work, furniture, design fees, owner contingencies, all of those sorts of things. It's certainly a big number, but the thing that I want to mention, and I can come back to this if you have questions, is that terminal funding is very unique. Well, I'll say airport funding is very unique to probably a lot of projects that the city does. And I recognize that it's been 20 years since the city has had to deal with a terminal expansion project. And I think the important thing to note at this point is that at this stage is the city shouldn't consider this project a project that they have to go alone on. The way these projects work is they are always collaborative projects that are done in conjunction with not only the airport in the city of Bismarck, but also the state of North Dakota and with the Federal Aviation Administration or the federal government. And we have projects that are going on all around us right now that are following this similar collaborative model. Fargo, Rapid City, Sioux Falls, as examples of projects that are going through this. And so it's a complex process, but I think it's, like I mentioned, it's important to note that this is not a lift that the city has to take on their own. This is a very customary process. In terms of our next steps, we'll be looking at finalizing the planning study. As Matt mentioned, the phase that we're in right now is reviewing the financial implementation plan, which is not only a combination of how are we going to put together a funding package in order to develop this, but it's equally looking at the airport's cash flow and finances to ensure that the airport has the capacity to be able to take on a project like this. So it's a bit more in depth. We're getting close to wrapping that up. When we do, we'll be issuing the final report, and then certainly following that, we'll be starting the collaborative process of starting to work with all of the other partners that are going to eventually contribute to the development of this project. So with that, if you have questions, I would be happy to answer those.
Questions for Jeff? Commissioner Risch?
Madam Chair, Jeff, when I first started hearing about it, it was $80 million and $100 million and $150, then backed off to $135, and now it's $160. Wow. It's a big, big number. And we're not sure how much help we'll get from the state because the legislature has to meet again before we get any money from them. But about how much of this $160.8 million goes for engineering fees and architectural fees in consultant stuff?
Generally speaking, I can't say specifically without pulling out the report, but generally speaking, consultant fees are right around 10%, Commissioner Risch. And that, what I want to be real clear on too, is that's the entire consulting team. And so that includes the architects, all of the engineers, passenger boarding bridge engineers, baggage handling engineers. There's a much more robust group of engineers that are required for a project like this. But it generally is around 10%. And it's not 10% of that 160 million. It's baked into that 160 million already.
Sure.
Yeah.
So that also includes the oversight of construction?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Any other questions for Jeff or Matt?
I know Matt's got a couple things he wants to wrap up.
Perfect.
so-
Come on up.
Okay.
Well, I do appreciate you guys hearing the update. We're very excited about the project out at the airport. A few things that I just wanted to touch on, and Jeff did too. We are going to be wrapping up that financial plan and putting together a nice packet for distribution out to the commission and out to the public for review and comment as well. So that's coming down. And one of the other things that we're going to be doing is tomorrow, July 23rd, from 4 to 6 p.m., we're going to be having an open house for the terminal study. It's an opportunity for the public to come in and provide their thoughts and comments on the study and on the preferred concept. So anybody who's interested in that has the opportunity. We'll be making this presentation again tomorrow at 4:15 and 5:15. And then once that is all wrapped up, this
Matt,
is really... Yes.
where will that be at?
At the event center. We're going to be on the north side, like at door E42.
Okay,
We're going to be right in the lobby because don't want to have people to walk too far in
Sure.
to be there. So, and appreciate Amanda and her crew setting that up. And then, so once all that is compiled, the study will really be the guide that takes us forward through design and development and into construction of the terminal. However, as Jeff alluded to, we're going to have a lot of partners in this. And to start gaining the support on a local, state, and federal level, we're going to need to start working with those partners. And here at a future meeting, we are going to be bringing forth a contract that will elicit those services with the help of a consultant who has some experience in that realm. He's helped other airports with this, with understanding the FAA rules, with the state legislature, state governor's office. So that's going to be something that we've been referring to as the missionary work. So that's going to be something that we'll be bringing to the commission in the future here. So with that, I'll end unless there are any questions.
Commissioner Risch?
I just want to make a comment that our airport is self-sufficient. We haven't been providing tax dollars to our airport, with the exception of the expansion in 2005. 2005, we made a $10 million contribution, is that correct?
No, I think it was only a couple $1 million in 2005, but in 2018, the city did provide $10 million for our $66 million runway project.
Okay. So you're going to be working on the package, and you'll come up with some ideas on what you'd hope the city would contribute.
Absolutely, and that's really what that consultant is going to help us with, Commissioner Risch.
And I guess just to add, from what I've seen, because we've talked a little bit about it at Budget Committee, there's multiple lanes, and some of those are going to play out depending on state grant funding, federal funding, because you pull federal funding from different FAA areas and stuff. And really, the city ask potentially doesn't change too much. It'll have more to do with how much gets bonded and that sort of stuff, and just see if we can get ourselves over the finish line, I think.
Madam Chair, you're absolutely correct. The $160 million is what the study is recommending, and there were some different discussions at the budget table based on depending on what funding we can get from the FAA, some of their programs that are out there right now. Like right now, there's the Airport Terminal Improvement Program.
Mm-hmm.
That's a competitive program across the entire country. We are going to try to apply for some of those funds. The likelihood that we'll get them is low, but we're still going to try.
Okay. Any other questions for Matt? All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
All right, we'll move on. Item B, public hearing on ordinance 6629 to amend Chapter 10-11 franchises for the City of Bismarck Code of Ordinances. This is a public hearing. Anyone who wishes to speak on the ordinance, please come forward. Second call for public hearing. Third and final call for public hearing. Public hearing is now closed. What are the wishes of the commission?
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Go ahead and call roll.
Mayor Schmitz,
Yes.
Commissioner Risch,
Yes.
Commissioner Zenker,
Yes.
Commissioner Connolly,
Yes.
Chair Cleary.
Yes. Item C, public hearing for ordinance 6631 to create a special assessment district for annexed properties. This is a public hearing. Anyone who wishes to speak on ordinance 6631, please come forward. Second call for public hearing. Third and final call for public hearing. Public hearing is now closed. What are the wishes of the commission?
Move to approve as presented.
Move to.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Go ahead and call roll.
Commissioner Risch,
Yes.
Commissioner Zenker,
Yes.
Commissioner Connolly,
Yes.
Mayor Schmitz,
Yes.
Chair Cleary.
Yes. Item D, public hearing on ordinance 6634, a zoning ordinance text amendment to revise section of 140416 on the City of Codes ordinance height and setback regulations or structures on P public zoning districts. Isaac, you going to present for us?
I am indeed.
Perfect.
Thank you, Chair Cleary, Mayor and Commissioners. This regular agenda item is brought forward by the Community Development Department, who are requesting approval of a zoning ordinance text amendment to revise the building setback and height regulations for structures in the P Public Zoning District, specifically Section 140416. So this came about when staff had some conversations with Bismarck State College and their consultants regarding some projects they wanted to do in P Public Zoned land. And it was noted that this specific section of the ordinance had some complexities with the connection between building height and building setbacks that were found to be confusing and could potentially render projects infeasible. So staff initially requested direction from the Planning and Zoning Commission on April 23rd of this year on whether or not to move forward, and the commission did direct us to move forward. The focal point of this really is the connection between the height and setbacks, where above a certain height, there was the requirement to add a little more building setback progressively more and more for each foot or fraction thereof over 35 feet. So what we're doing with this one is we are simplifying the building setback regulation in connection to that building height, simplifying the side yard setback specifically, and then there are no changes to any other zoning districts, no changes to uses permitted in this or anything like that. And these slides were included in your packet as well if you would prefer to see them there. But as of right now, the building height limit in P public zoned land is 75 feet or 50 feet if it is within 300 feet of a residentially zoned district. This is not being proposed to change. The front yard and rear yard setback minimum is 25 and 20 feet as a baseline, but for every foot or fraction thereof over 35 feet, you are required to add an additional 2 feet to that setback. And then for the side yard, my personal favorite of this section, there has to be 2 side yards, and the sum of the 2 yards shall not be less than 20% of the average width of the lot. And if the average lot width is less than or equal to 60 feet, each side yard shall not be less than 10% of the lot width, but never less than 5 feet. Or if the average lot width is 60 feet, each side yard shall be at least 6 feet, but at least 15 feet if the height is at least 35 feet. But also 4 feet must be added for every foot or fraction thereof over 35 feet. So I was originally going to ask you if you wanted to do some math problems to make sure we were all understanding this, but then I remembered most people don't enjoy math problems, so we'll just skip over that. And I will say that if someone wanted to do a 75-foot building, as of right now, they would be required to do a front yard setback of 105 feet, rear yard setback 100 feet, and 2 side yard setbacks of between 165 and 175 feet, depending on the average width of the lot. needless to say, staff thought this could be adjusted a little bit. So our proposal was taking those original baselines of 25 feet for the front, 20 feet for the rear, and 5 feet for the side, the smallest possible version of the setback right now to avoid as many nonconformities or creating more nonconformities as possible. And of course, these are just minimums. A property owner could go above those minimums if they choose. So this was considered by the Planning and Zoning Commission on May 28th, and they called for the public hearing. The public was notified via publications in the Bismarck Tribune before that hearing on June 13th and 20th, and that hearing was held on June 25th. Staff did not receive any public comments prior to that hearing. No members of the public spoke at that hearing, and at the conclusion of that hearing, the Planning and Zoning Commission did vote to recommend approval as it is outlined in the staff reports with you today. At the City Commission level, you considered this item on July 8th and called for the public hearing today. The public was notified again via publications in the Bismarck Tribune on July 11th and 18th, and to my knowledge, staff have not received any public comments prior to this hearing. So as a cumulative result of all the findings contained in the staff reports before you, City of Bismarck staff find that the proposed zoning ordinance text amendment would not adversely impact public health, safety, and general welfare, and that it is generally consistent with the comprehensive plan, Bismarck Code of Ordinances, and relevant state law. And I promise we were being objective, and we're not just recommending this because we're the ones who wrote it. But staff do recommend approval of the zoning ordinance text amendment to revise the building height and setback regulations for structures in the P Public Zoning District, specifically Section 1404-16. Does the commission have any questions for me at this time?
It does not appear so. Thank you, Isaac. Commissioner Connolly.
I just wanted to say that I didn't know if you could do it better than what you did at Planning and Zoning, but you added quite a bit to it. You animated a topic that's pretty boring for most people.
Thank you, Commissioner Connolly.
All right. Thank you, Isaac.
Thank you.
This is a public hearing. Anyone who wishes to speak on the agenda item, please come forward. Second call for public hearing. Third and final call for public hearing. Public hearing is now closed. What are the wishes of the commission?
I'll move we approve as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Go ahead and call roll.
Commissioner Zenker,
Yes.
Commissioner Connolly,
Yes.
Mayor Schmitz,
Yes.
Commissioner Risch,
Yes.
Chair Clary.
Yes. Item E, public hearing on the request for taxi cab license for affordable taxi. This is a public hearing. Anyone who wishes to speak on the agenda item, please come forward. Second call for public hearing. Third and final call for public hearing. Public hearing is now closed. What are the wishes of the commission?
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Go ahead and call roll.
Commissioner Connolly,
Yes.
Mayor Schmitz,
Yes.
Commissioner Risch,
Yes.
Commissioner Zenker,
Yes.
Chair Clary.
Yes. Item F, public hearing on International Building Code text amendment to allow for specific Group U and Group S occupancy buildings to be constructed without a frost-protected foundation system. Brady.
Chair Clary, Mayor and Commissioners, the Building Code text amendment you have before you tonight is an amendment to the International Building Code. This amendment will allow for certain utility structures, self-service storage facilities specifically, to be constructed on non-frost protected foundation systems if they meet the following conditions. First, the building must be classified in a risk category 1. Risk category 1 are buildings that are low hazard or low risk structures because they're normally unoccupied structures. The second condition would be there can be no habitable space, conditioned space, bathrooms, or toilet rooms in the building. Basically, the building should be provided with shouldn't be provided with features that would allow them to be occupied. And then the third condition is the building must also be no greater than 1 story in height, and the interior spaces within that building must be able to be accessed directly from the exterior of the building. This is a fire protection requirement that was also referenced in Chapter 9 of the Building Code, specifically for those self-service storage facilities that we thought maybe should be added here as well, just to be redundant in the code and have it specific to this section. Staff recommends approval of this amendment, and I'm here if you have any questions.
Doesn't look like it. This is a public hearing. Anyone who wishes to speak on this topic, please come forward. Second call for public hearing. Third and final call for public hearing. Public hearing is now closed. What are the wishes of the commission?
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Go ahead and call roll.
Mayor Schmitz,
Yes.
Commissioner Risch,
Yes.
Commissioner Zenker,
Yes.
Commissioner Connolly,
Yes.
Chair Cleary.
Yes. Item G, consider the request to discuss the results of the bulk item collection pilot program and decide whether or not to continue the program and to discuss options for fall leave disposal. Steve.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Back in November of 2024, it was decided that we would implement a bulk item pickup program on a trial basis. And at that time, we were going to do it for a 6-month period, and I would report back on the findings of the trial program. So basically, I'm here tonight to report on those results. Currently, what we did is we scheduled the bulk pickups for the third Wednesday of the month. And we didn't know how many people were going to utilize the program. And so therefore, we just decided to do it the one time per month and see where that takes us. If we, if the need was more, we could adjust accordingly. So what we did is if someone had something that they needed to be picked up, they could call in, they could schedule the pickup time for the given date of that month, which was, like I said, typically the third Wednesday of the month. We picked Wednesday because Wednesdays were typically the lightest collection day for the landfill staff. And so when they got back from their normal collections, then they'd go, a group of them would go out and do the bulk item collection, bulk item pickup. And so it was easier for us to shift the staff around on that day. So basically, the first collection that we did was in January. And the first month we had 13 people call in, schedule the collection, and we picked up 19 items that month. In February, we had 8 people call in, and we picked up 13 items that month. In March, we had 9 people utilize the service, and we picked up 19 items on that month. April, we didn't do the program. We had spring cleanup week, and so anybody could put everything out to the curb, so we didn't see a need to have it that month. But then in May, the month right after cleanup week, we had 6 people reach out, and we picked up 9 items on that month. In June, that was actually our highest month. We had 17 people reach out, and we picked up 23 items. And then in July, we had 8 people reach out, and we picked up 17 items. So on average, we had 10.16 people per month average for a total of 16.66 items picked up over that on the average. So the utilization of the program, it's not large, but it is being utilized. Most of the people that are utilizing the program are those that don't have the ability to take things out to the landfill on their own. And so based on the results of the program and the people needing the program, it is my recommendation this evening to continue the bulk item pickup service into the future. And it would also be my recommendation to adjust the fees annually, if needed, during the normal budgeting process that we go through every year. And so that would be my recommendation this evening.
Does anyone have questions for Steve on that topic? I think it's been working well, I guess, doing it monthly. I know it ebbs and flows, and it's never going to be something that makes money. It's always going to be something that that is purely a service. So the fees, I don't see them being adjusted too much because there's not going to be a point of adjusting them to be able to make money because it's just not going to be that type of service for us. So, but I think it's working well, and it helps us balance out the only doing the one full cleanup week a year, as well as the limited trash pickup without the extras. So I think it's been a good service for people who need it, so.
I would move that we continue the program if we need a resolution.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on continuing the bulk item collection pilot program. Any further discussion? Go ahead and call roll.
Commissioner Risch?
Yes.
Commissioner Zenker?
Yes.
Commissioner Connolly?
Yes.
Mayor Schmitz?
Yes.
Chair Cleary?
Yes. And then, Steve, I think we're also going to discuss when we changed fall cleanup week to the free week at the landfill, and so the main cleanup week is spring. The biggest concern that we heard from citizens last year was leaf collection, because without picking up extras, people aren't able to leave all their bags of leaves at the curb, but they also aren't able to put them out during cleanup week, and so it kind of limits their options. So we were going to have a little bit more discussion on if we want to provide an additional service for specifically for leaf cleanup. Do you want to elaborate a little bit on that for us?
Yes. So you're exactly right. With the elimination of the collection of extra items, one of the concerns amongst residents was, what are they going to do with their leaves in the fall, or their grass clippings? And so so far the grass clippings don't appear to be as much of an issue. They are able to put them in their normal can every week, and in the fall, you can put your leaves in your normal can as well. However, when the leaves fall, there's a lot more of them, and so it becomes more of a volume issue that they have to deal with. So we've had some internal discussions among staff of how can we accommodate our citizens or residents for the collection of the leaves in the fall. And so we talked about various different options. And the first one that we talked about was, well, should we allow our residents just to put them in the street on a given week, and we come by with the street sweepers and pick them up? One of the problems we saw with that, though, is there's an ordinance about putting anything in the street. And so how would we allow it for 1 week or 2 weeks out of the year, but then the other 50 weeks out of the year that it would be enforced? And if that's the case, are they going to just blow everything out anytime that they wish? And so the coordination of that, if we don't have enough street sweepers to do the entire city in any given particular week, so we would have to have multiple sections of the community at different times. And so given the logistics of trying to coordinate that, along with the ordinance not allowing that type of an activity, we dismissed that option. And so then we talked about, well, what if we allow the residents just to place the leaves on the boulevard, and then we come by with a commercial leaf vacuum and we suck them up? Well, we kind of ran into the same issues there. If you're going to do it, you can't just do the entire community in 1 week. It's going to be multiple periods. So now we have to, okay, this week is this section of town, this week is this section of town. How do we coordinate that? And so most people would probably just put them out on the boulevard and just wait for us to come and pick them up. Well, as you know, the wind blows in this community, and so most of them would probably end up in the street or in the neighbor's yard, and we'd probably get a lot of calls on that. So because of the logistics of that piece, plus we don't have a commercial leaf vacuum to do this, so we would have to buy additional equipment. And so for those reasons, we dismissed this option as well. So then we talked about residents being able just to put their leaves in a bag like they always did, and placing those out to the curb for collection. The problem is if when they put leaves in a plastic bag, of course, anytime you have the plastic, then everything ends up down into landfill. And we've been trying really hard to keep those types of things, compostable or recyclable materials, out of the landfill and try to compost them as best we can. And so one day I was having a conversation with Commissioner Risch, and he brought up the idea of, well, you know, there's a lot of home improvement places that sell the 30-gallon paper lawn and leaf bags. Maybe we have our residents put them in the paper bags. That way you could collect the paper bags along with the leaves. It could all be composted at the same time. Nothing ends up down in the landfill. It's kind of a win-win. So we really liked that option. And so what we talked about is, okay, so if we do this collection, how do we make this work? How often do we do this? Do we do it once per year at the end of the season, or do we do it a couple times? Try to stagger them. So you do it earlier in the season, then kind of a break, and then towards the end of the season. And so what we thought is, you know, if we do the collection, a lot of times the bulk of the leaves don't fall until into the October timeframe. And so maybe we do one collection the middle of October. We take another week off, and then we do another collection the last week in October. We thought, okay, that would probably give the residents the ability to put things out. Of course, we're still going to have our the leaf collection, or the grass sites open during this time, so you can still take things in there and dump them in. We're not going to remove those. This is just for the people that don't have the ability to take things over to those grass sites. And so we thought 2 weeks would probably be sufficient. And so that's kind of what we talked about. And then the unfortunate part is staffing. So in order to do this, we would do it during the normal collection day for garbage collection. And right now we run 5 trucks per area of town. I don't know if we need 5, but we're probably going to have to plan for maybe 4 trucks, which would be 8 people, the driver and the one collector. And so the unfortunate part is I don't have landfill staff to do that. I don't have 8 people around, extra people to do this. So what we talked about is taking our roads and streets employees and allowing, having them shift over for that week and doing the collection for us. And we do have spare trucks, and so we can, as far as trucks and trailers, we can make that work. It's just the staffing that I would have to switch over my landfill staff and to take care of that for us. So basically what we're looking for tonight is a decision of, should we implement the fall leaf collection, curbside collection? If the answer is no, that's the only decision I need. If the answer is yes, then I would also be looking for another decision is, do we require our residents to utilize paper bags, and so therefore everything can be recycled and composted? Or do we allow them to put it in plastic bags, and given that, everything would end up down into landfill? And then the third decision was, do we do a one-time collection or a multiple, a 2-time collection in the fall? And should that be the middle of October and the end of October, as we had talked and discussed? So that's really where we're at, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Commissioner Risch.
Yeah, Madam Chair, Steve, I like the idea of the paper bags, just because the last pit we dug was like $4.4 million.
Correct.
And to fill that up with leaves is just not the right thing to do when we can recycle them. And I understand that blowing it on the boulevard or in the street, I mean, it's going to rain, there'll be cars on the park next to the curb. That's just almost unworkable, that sort of thing. So I think you're on the right track with paper bags. We can get these paper bags, do it a couple of times, and shuffle your staff to make it work. I really appreciate your work on it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I guess I would agree. Steve and I have talked through the other options. I know there's other cities in the state that do the like vacuum up and stuff, but like logistically, the city of Bismarck is just not really set up well for it. And the wind that we get can be interesting. I can only imagine if people are putting their leaves out there a week ahead of time or something, who knows where they end up. But I would agree, Commissioner Risch, I do not want to see them all end up in the landfill. Just, I feel like we've had sites fill up faster. You know, we're always gauging how many years we're going to be using the site, and our landfill does fill up a little quicker, I think, than we estimate and we would like. And so I would prefer to be able to compost them. I think asking the residents to, if they want to have their leaves picked up, that they have to be in a paper bag. I think it still gives them, kind of like the bulk pickup, it gives them an option if they don't want to go out to the landfill or go to a grass dumpster. But it still, you know, requires a certain, you know, like just like the bulk pickup, it has to be on that day that's assigned from Public Works, and that they have to pay the fee. With this, our ask is that it has to be in the paper bag. And so I feel like it's a good compromise. Obviously, with the staffing, it's not ideal, but we pull people from solid waste and forestry when we have huge snow events. I think the Public Works crews are very used to helping each other out as needed. The only thing that I would like to make sure is stated when we make a decision is, I think that I don't want Steve to have to come back to us in October if, like, because of a weather event, the dates don't work anymore. So I want to be able to know, I want to be able to give him the flexibility to adjust the decision as needed. If we're going to say, yes, do it twice, require the paper bags, let's aim for the 2 October weeks that you are thinking, Steve. But if we get a snowstorm on October 16th, then I would be like, I'm okay with Steve making a decision on what we do for leaf pickup or what that looks like without him having to come back to us. Commissioner Zenker.
Madam Chair, Steve, are we going to provide the bags, or are we going to make them pick them up from someplace, or are we going to charge them for picking those up, or what's your?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Zenker, normal garbage is the residents furnish their own bags, so I would assume that they would furnish their own bags here as well. There would be no charge for us to pick them up. It would be part of our normal service, but we would ask that they furnish their own bags.
Any other questions?
Can we make it, I mean, is there a place where we could provide a spot for them to pick it up?
Like we sell them?
Well, it could be that too, or whatever. I mean, it's already kind of an inconvenience for those neighborhoods that have mature trees. I mean, I live in one of them, so when the wind blows, sometimes the neighbor picks up my leaves, and sometimes I pick up the neighbor leaves, type things. And I wouldn't use this service because I'd make my 16-year-old kid do it just to make his life a little bit miserable. So I just want to, I want to look out for the citizens who don't have that opportunity to do it. So I do have a concern if we're not going to provide I like the idea. I think we need to fine tune how they can get bags, or what if they don't buy the right ones, or they're recyclable, those types of things.
Sure. I think if we're not going to provide them, because if we were saying that they could do them in plastic bags and we were just doing a leaf pickup that we were going to throw into the landfill, we wouldn't provide the plastic bags, right? But this is a little different. Do we need to make sure that if we're going to require that they go buy them from a store, that stores have them on hand, have enough of them on hand? I guess we could do some more exploring in that regard. Or if it is something that we want to provide via, way back when we were talking about extras, we talked about the option of like the specific bag extras. Wasn't an idea we moved forward with, but at that point, we were going to sell the citizens those bags. So do the paper bags, do we go that route? I don't, where they pick them up at Public Works in September or something like that.
Sure. So obviously, we're going to use, you okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, Madam Chair, one more question. So here's a thought too. I mean, if there's an opportunity, and we're using existing trucks, I'm assuming they're the open the back trucks where we don't, right? Can't citizens just set garbage cans out there with them and we dump those in there instead of throwing that in too? Would that be a viable option?
Could we allow that? Just say that they can't be in plastic bags?
We could allow that too, as long as you're picking that up and it's a garbage can that one person can dump.
Yeah,
Sure.
I'm thinking
Yeah.
a 33-gallon, 36-gallon, something like that.
A decent amount of people still have those, even though they're
Right.
not putting them out for garbage pickup.
Sure. We
So
can
that
allow
could be
that
an
too.
option too.
Mhm.
Any other thoughts, Commissioner
Madam
Risch?
Chair, I've seen the last several years a lot of the paper bags on the curbs when we were picking up the extras. So they're out there.
Okay.
I don't think it'll be too burdensome. And if this policy goes forward, I'm sure the local hardware stores and whatnot are going to say, hey, that's an opportunity to sell some more bags.
True. I mean, I think asking them to either put them in a container that's not in a plastic bag, like Commissioner Zenker said, or utilizing a paper bag we're making that ask, but we're still providing the service, because if we say no, then they're having to deal with their leaves on their own. So, I mean, I think we're still finding a level of compromise, even though the paper bags aren't necessarily what everybody is used to.
Chair Cleary.
Go ahead, Mayor.
One thought, I mean, I like the idea, but I think we could also make the bags available potentially through the city or through Public Works if we were able to secure a source for them. I mean, honestly, I'm not as concerned about the cost of those bags. If we save our landfill as a result of this, we're probably money ahead as a city, even if we had to provide the paper bags for this event. But I mean, I like the idea of garbage cans. As long as we can collect out of those and dump it, that works too. It's one less item in the landfill, paper.
Sure. So
I think we need to investigate the options.
maybe could we?
Find a way forward.
I think that you kind of can see where we're at, Steve, and maybe we can do a little bit more research as to, like, would it be possible for Public Works to provide bag pickup for people who want to utilize paper bags, and like what that would look like as far as sourcing, and then come back to us?
I'm positive we could source them.
Sure.
If that's the direction that you want to go and we provide those at no charge to the citizens, we'll find a way to source them.
Okay.
We are going to have to kind of move a little quickly here because I hate to
Yeah.
say it, but
It's
October
already-
is 60 days away. In a week, maybe. We'll be talking about snow before you know it. That'll be your next presentation.
That's a 4-letter word.
So I'm thinking that it feels like we have a consensus, but if somebody would like to, I'd entertain a motion on it for Steve's sake, as far as the bags go, or the collections.
Could you come back in the first week in August and give us the options and see what they are?
Could you do that, Steve? Figure out how we're gonna source them, maybe come up with like a projected dollar amount as what it would cost Public Works to do that,
I can do that.
and then come back to us?
Perfect.
Okay, I think we'll do that then. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Yes. All right. Item H, consider the request to receive and approve the city's 2026 preliminary budget requests, and budget committee recommendations. I'm just going to say, I've seen Dimitri's slides. There is 40 of them, so if anyone needs a very short break before we start this.
That's a good idea.
Anybody? All right, doesn't look like it. I told him he has to be fast. I also told him he wasn't allowed to have 40 slides, but here we are. So,
Now I'm gonna make the next item, the person that's supposed to be on the next agenda item, I'm gonna make them wait as long as possible. Hey, he has to earn it. You can't just get it like that. Madam Chair, Commissioners, Mayor, thank you for having me present this. It's my time of the year to present the 2026 budget. I would just encourage you all to ask questions as I go. There's a couple of new things. I will probably go pretty quick on some of these, as you have all been sort of involved in certain conversations in your departments and everything. But I do want this to be a discussion personally, and I will, from time to time, punt to Madam Chair Cleary and let her talk about certain parts of the budget. So as every year I present this to you, I kind of talk about the requirements. We are required to establish appropriations for the general fund, special revenue funds, and debt service fund, and have a 5-year capital improvement project plan for the budget according to North Dakota Century Code. We do follow GAAP and GASB, and so there's a lot of accounting principles that have followed the budget, even though the budget is the important document, but there are requirements that we have to follow when we put together the budget. And then there's other funds, capital projects fund, or enterprise funds, internal service funds, fiduciary funds that are other related, but really not something we particularly focus on. But enterprise funds have what's called a financial plan, and all these other funds have financial plans, but not required to be appropriated as the former ones are. One of the main new thing this year that I want to point out is the House Bill 1176, which was passed by the legislature earlier this year. It will impact property taxes for 2026 and 2027 fiscal years for the city, and all cities and counties and local political subdivisions in North Dakota. The state has established, it's kind of in the way I look at it, is a twofold kind of bill. It has a tax credit portion of it, and then it has a property tax cap portion of it. So the state has established a relief fund from the legacy fund. It has a primary residence credit up to $1,600. I mean, these are the things that really don't impact the city directly. And the key things that they've sort of changed is that previously the citizens of the city would receive a preliminary tax statement, which would come in August or September from the county auditor of every jurisdiction in the state of North Dakota. They have eliminated the preliminary tax statement and basically said that the only thing that the city is required to do, or any local jurisdiction has to do, is really just establish a public hearing date for the budget ordinance and set that up and basically announce it with the county auditor. And then the county auditor is allegedly supposed to send out written notice to each citizen of when the public hearing will occur. And so we will post our budget for the public to see. And so we're also required to do that by ordinance. We're required to post it in the Tribune, or put the notice in the Tribune several times before the public hearing. So we will be doing those procedures in order to comply with House Bill 1176. And then, the public hearing for the budget must be scheduled no later than September 7th and no later than October 7th. That is something that's been there for as long as I've been here, and so that's nothing new. But we will shoot to have a public hearing on September 9th in a few months. So regarding property tax, the base year, the way it's sort of set up, and I'm going to try to make this as painless as possible for you all. But basically what it means is that they wanted to establish a base year levy for each political subdivision, and then allow a percentage limit up to 3%. And these particularly, there's different laws for school districts. This is particularly to counties and cities and parks districts and other local subs. But essentially, we have a percentage limit of 3% that relates to how much we can increase our property taxes by, and it's based on the dollar amount that we levied the previous year. In addition, they do allow us to have to look at any sort of valuations any properties that increased valuations from the previous year, meaning new properties or additions to existing properties, that they're allowing us to add those to the calculation and count that towards the property tax as well. However, that also comes with the opposite, which is the deduction of the valuations of properties that went from being taxable to non-taxable. So it kind of goes both ways, and so we net those two and then multiply that by the mill levy rate to determine what our increase will be, and then multiply that by 3%. So essentially, it comes out to a little bit higher than 3% with the growth. Basically, we're able to have a property tax up to 4.4% at this time.
Dimitri?
Yes.
Dimitri?
Yes, Mayor.
So it's a 3% increase on year-over-year dollars for property that was already improved. The additional dollars are only coming from new improved properties. So I think, to be clear, it's really not it's a 3% increase on realizable dollars if that property had been taxed in 2024, or 2024 for 2025. It'd be misleading to say it's a 4-point-some% increase. It might be dollars increased by that much, but that's only because there's new property.
Correct. Correct, Mayor. And I apologize if I misrepresented that, but basically, our existing taxable value increased 3.28%, but we are brought down by that 3% cap, so it limits us at 3% on existing properties.
Chair, Dimitri, so I'll ask the loaded question. How are we going to manage all the parcels of property that are already, not the new stuff, right? Just the parcels that were in 24, that they will only see a max of 3%?
Commissioner Zenker,
Right.
I think I know where you're going with this.
Yes, sir.
Not every property owner will receive an increase of just 3% on their tax bill.
So
based on the law.
Okay, so I think that's going to be, I know it's going to be an issue, because the state legislation talked about that for months, as to, hey, cap of 3%, cap of 3%, cap of 3%. And then if we get residents that have a larger than 3% increase, that's going to be an issue.
Potentially.
So how are we going to manage that? Because I think that was the intent of the legislation, is that there's a cap of 3% for everybody.
Unfortunately, Commissioner Zenker, the way the law is written, the cap is based on the dollars levied by each political subdivision, and it's not levied at 3% by each property tax bill. And so the valuations on each property are still there, and so I think Commissioner Conley and I spoke about this. The best way I could describe it, and maybe the Mayor Schmitz or any of you have a better way and a better analogy, but I think of it, our pool can only increase 3%. If we were thinking about like a swimming pool or a bucket of water, our bucket of water can only increase 3%. But everybody has a different size cup, and your cup might be bigger, your cup might get smaller depending on your valuation. And so how much you take from that pool is going to be how much you pay. And so that's kind of, but everybody has to pay that, grab a certain amount of water out of that bucket.
I feel like we've had this conversation before. I don't know if it was at this table or if it was just you and I, Dimitri, but the messaging on it is going to be confusing, I feel like, for citizens, because they've been hearing 3% cap forever, but evaluations still play a role, and the 3% cap is just on the total. And so if, like, because of the way that the market is, certain types of home, like evaluations, it just is going to be tricky. It'll be interesting. I don't know, but I don't know how we control it otherwise, because.
So I understand.
Go ahead, Mayor.
I understand exactly where Commissioner Zinker is coming from, because I had this exact conversation with multiple individuals at the state, including legislators, and I'm still not sure. I mean, I know what we're trying to accomplish here, and I have a way, but it will be, the problem is I don't know how we can cause it to happen, because we're not the ones who actually get to send out the bill. So if we were able to actually send out the tax bill for the city of Bismarck's share of taxes, I think we get to get there to exactly where Commissioner Zinker is at. It'd be 3% last year's bill, period, year over year. It'd be, or whatever our percentage increase was, 1%, whatever it was. I don't know how we control it, because we have to give the county auditor or treasurer, I guess auditor, here's our taxes that the city of Bismarck collects, and then they allocate it. We actually don't have a lot of control over that, because they're going to get the values, unless we come up with a map. And I've run some tests, and I try to figure out what it might be. And I understand exactly where Commissioner Zinker's from. I've been worried about this since the day this bill was introduced.
Commissioner Risch.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I've talked to many citizens about this. Just because it's 3% cap of overall doesn't mean you're not going to possibly see a bigger increase than 3%, because your property has been assessed and it hasn't been reassessed in 25 years. You might have a bigger increase than 3%.
Right, which might lead to other people's going down,
Sure.
because our top dollar, our bulk is what is capped at the 3%. It is, more complicated, I think, than any of us want it to be. But Commissioner Zinker.
But, Madam Chair, I mean, we did discuss it when we had the equalization meetings,
Mhm.
right? We had the same,
Yes.
I still have the same concern then as I do now, and I don't have an answer. I can't justify going to citizens and saying, hey, there was supposed to be tax reform from the state, and we're kind of off topic here because Dimitri's supposed to get his, and Stugemeyer's waiting like crazy. So there's, but we got to have the discussion.
Yeah.
If there's tax reform out there, and you get a group of citizens who, and I completely understand the valuation, I understand how that all works. If they're paying more than 3%, it's going to be an issue.
I don't disagree with you. I don't
have
feels
any
like our
problem-
hands are
Right.
tied in a sense.
I don't have any problem carrying my fair share, but I also don't expect other citizens to have to carry a 15 or 16 or 18% increase, and somebody else, doesn't have to do that. Because that's
Right.
not what was sold to us from the legislation.
No, I agree. I just, as the city, like the mayor said, we're not even the ones that send out the tax bills. We're not the ones that wrote. It feels like our hands are tied. So I guess I don't know if anyone else has a concept of what we can do about it as a city.
I have an idea.
Go ahead,
I don't
Mayor.
know if we can I don't even know if we can do it, but we could certainly say in the city of Bismarck, property values go up 3%, and then our tax rate never changes, and we only add new property. And then you're there at 3% on the city of Bismarck, or whatever our rate is.
But I guess I don't understand what that does, like, for the purpose of evaluations and assessment.
Well, it effectively eliminates the valuation process, which is I don't think what this, I don't, like, I still am struggling how this bill was structured. I just got to be honest. It's been a struggle from the day I read it to the day I started asking questions of multiple legislators. But I understand exactly what Commissioner Zinker's concerns are. I have the very same concerns. I don't know how to do it other than we set valuation at a rate of increase, and that's how we deal with it.
Commissioner Risch.
Maybe we could do a fact sheet and get the county auditor to include it on explaining this in a simple way when they send out the tax statement. In lieu of that, maybe we could do a fact sheet, and if they're not willing to, put it in our utility bills towards the end of the fall. We could make a one-page, simple explanation is 3%, but that doesn't mean yours is only go. And to begin with, there's no we don't have to raise it 3%. That's the cap. That's the cap.
Right, correct, yeah. There can certainly be years where you don't go to 3%, obviously, yeah. Commissioner Zinker.
That's a great question. So let's ask that. So where'd you get the 3.28? That's a valuation increase, right?
Yes.
Of all the properties.
Correct.
Okay. So
No, not all property, existing properties.
existing properties. Yep. Good. Yeah, we got to be specific. So good catch. So of that valuation increase, and we change it to 3%. You just have that 3% because of the valuation increase? Is it a true 3% increase dollar-wise too?
Correct.
It is.
The taxable value, market value adjusts, but taxable value, which is what the property tax bill is based on, increased 3%. So you are correct, and that impacts dollars as well, because we're no longer allowed to change the mill levy. The mill levy is basically a non-factor. Right. It used to be where it'd be a valuation times the mill levy basically ends up being your property tax, how much you're going to collect each year. Based with this House Bill 1176, that essentially eliminates the mill levy, the rate that you multiply valuations by. Each entity would multiply the valuations by to determine what the property tax revenue would be.
So back to what I was stating, and the 3.8 or 3.28, excuse me, that's the average increase. So some went up, some went down between those numbers.
Correct.
So if we're trying to make sure that each of our property owners, citizens, residents in the city of Bismarck would only see whatever our rate of increase is. School districts park districts could be different than ours. Counties could be different than ours as well. And they all play into this, but we could just have an expectation that property values are going to go up X percent, less 3% or less, and then our mill rate never changes effectively, and we get to that number. But I know where they're going. I know what they said in the bill. It said cap on total dollars that the municipality can assess. So if it's 34 million, whatever it was last year, times 1.03%, that's the dollars. And then you spread that based upon values. And values are, not every property goes up 3%. Not every property goes, they're all over the board.
Yeah.
So this is a real, I knew this day was coming when we have to have this, like, how do we handle this? How do we manage it?
Still not satisfied.
Yeah, I don't know if, obviously we don't have the answer. We know the total dollar amount because of the state law. I guess the answer or the question would be, do we operate in the way that the law is written, where it's based off of their assessment taxable value? So some people's are going to go up at a higher rate based off of assessing. Some might go down. That's been happening for years, obviously. It's just that now they've created this narrative of a 3% cap, which I think sets an expectation to citizens, when in reality, it's just capping the total. It's not capping the assessing ups and downs. Whether we as a entity can cap the individual, I don't know how that would work. Commissioner Connolly.
Well, this gets more convoluted during the Board of Equalization meetings or when people bring in their tax statement too. They're looking at a whole list and they're seeing the total, and a lot of times they're talking to us about the total and not necessarily what only the city has. So when Burley County passed their 1 cent, half-cent continuation, half-cent increase, they're looking at buying down 20-ish mills of their property tax. And that changes a lot of how people are going to come in with a statement, and it's going to be all over the map. Mm-hmm. And that's going to be part of the conversation that makes it tough on us, because people are going to ask how the city's impacted, but they're going to be seeing all of that list. We've had it several times when they bring their statements up. So just adding that in because that's our reality.
Right. I mean, I think there's a huge education piece to the Board of Equalization and people's property tax bills. Obviously, we know that as an entity, and I don't think that 1176 makes that go away. If anything, it's going to cause more questions. But for the sake of getting through this PowerPoint, since I don't think any of us have a solution to this.
So I think, and Madam Chair, I think we could get to what the formula is to arrive at however we want to once we know what the dollar amounts are here. I can show Dimitri what my concept is, and then between he and I, we can maybe share it. But I do believe there's a way.
Okay.
We could accomplish it. It just is going to kind of destroy the purpose, somewhat of the purpose of valuation.
Right. And I think that there's, I mean, I understand the point of that because I understand the narrative that the bill created, but I think that there's obviously cons to taking away the concept of evaluations as well. Like when you talk about people's improvements of properties or the market, I think that we might be creating a solution but causing another issue. But I think that there's obviously more conversation that can be had on that once we know what you're a broader example of what you're talking about.
Well, and just to say, Mayor Schmitz, and you know, we can talk about that, but I think the Board of Equalization is at the state level in August, and so I think from the city's point of view, I think our opportunity for that has passed in terms of valuation, changing valuations.
Sure.
Because it will impact all the political subdivisions inside of the city of Bismarck, including schools and parks and everybody, because the Board of Equalization at the city level holds power basically over the all values that impact all political subs in the area.
Any other comments on House Bill 1176? Okay, I think we'll move on from that. Okay, so I'm gonna take over for Dimitri for a little bit and just go over our budget process. This is my second year on the budget committee, second full year on the budget committee, and so in past years, depending on who's on the committee, the timeline and stuff gets done a little bit differently. So I was very appreciative that Dimitri, Doug, Jason, everybody kind of worked around my schedule. So it starts off with meeting with individual departments, going over their requests. You're going to see a list of one-time asks, FTE requests, ongoing asks, and so we kind of go through all of that. The budget committee then reviews the department requests with the directors and the portfolio commissioners. We're welcome to attend any of those. All of that happened in June, early June, and then the budget committee sits down, goes through all of those lists and kind of tries to make the best decisions we can with what we're working with, especially with the cap and the dollar amount that we know we need to stick to. And then that kind of leads us into July, which is where we're at here, presenting that recommendation to the commission. This is the preliminary budget, so if it gets approved tonight, changes can still be made. Basically, we cannot make additions, but we can still remove things. So that's kind of where we will be at after tonight if we move forward. And then so in September is when we'll hold the public hearing and the city commission approval for the 2026 budget ordinance. So if you want to keep going, Dimitri, for me, we had just kind of some general objectives, obviously some new stuff with the House bill. I would say, based off of this list that you're seeing on the screen, I kind of described this year's budget to the budget committee as it felt like very much like a maintenance year. There wasn't any like big equipment asks. There wasn't like an above average normal of FTE requests. It's definitely a lot about maintaining the level of services, maintaining what we are doing as a city as far as growth and how we can really like make sure that we're dealing with the inflation and the gradual increases of fees so that there isn't any like big surprises or big jumps down the road. So the inflation increases and the thing, IT software and upgrades, and we're just trying to make sure that everything stays on that schedule so that when we do hit a year that has bigger asks, we are able to like maintain the services that we're providing and that there's no big surprises. So that's kind of the way that this year felt. I think we can just keep going, Dimitri.
Do you want me to take this?
Yeah, why don't you go ahead?
So overall, I just want to, when we do these budgets is I want to make sure you guys are sort of aware of like the market, and obviously some of the stuff is pretty common knowledge. The inflation rate in July was reduced to 2.7% from 3% in the past year, but it fluctuates, monthly or whatever. Sounds like it's hovering around that 3% mark. Federal Reserve maintained the federal funds rate pretty consistent recently in recent times, and we always have increased costs continue to impact our budgets. Either in the past we've maybe been a little hesitant on increasing operating budgets, and so maybe in this situation I think it was kind of the year where we felt like, oh man, we're really behind on certain departments that needed a little bit more of a boost in their operating budgets. Their costs just exceeded what they've had in the past. We generally are pretty conservative in how we increase operating budgets, especially in the general fund. We look at every department and we say, okay, let's roll their operating budget from one year to the next without any increases. And that's our goal. But just happens to be that we have cost overruns. And as you know now, today is July of 2025. This budget is for the entire year of 2026, which is a year and a half away basically from being completed. We're planning way in advance where we, and that's just the nature of budgeting, is that we don't know what we don't know. And so sometimes when we see the following year, we see the results of an operating budget, we see, of a department, we look at it and say, oh man, this was way over our projections or way under our projections, and we kind of evaluate and to see if we need to adjust accordingly. And so that's kind of how we looked at this. The fleet replacement plan is working. We are having, ebbs and flows in replacement, but they're not significant. We don't have any significant cans that, quote unquote, proverbial cans that have been kicked down the road. So we're just following a plan, and it's causing us to actually save money in the long run. So now we're finally seeing kind of the repayment of that fleet replacement plan, because we're seeing costs not exceeding and not being significant. We're kind of paid off our first financing purchase that we've done in the last 5 years, this past year, and it kind of reduced some of the costs that we have. But the equipment has had a longer life than the loan itself, than the financing purchase itself. And so we are able to capitalize on those kind of situations. And so, that's why we have a plan. That's why it's good to maintain a plan, so we can sort of progressively replace things and progressively, just improve our fleet and improve our processes. Really, I would encourage the city commission to really consider improving things like that everywhere, in every aspect, is to continue maintaining things, because that will keep things stable and prevent any hikes and increases, and figuring out ways to, especially now with House Bill 1176 capping everything, really prevent from any major fluctuations in costs in the future.
Yeah, we definitely are hitting the point of the fleet plan, because now we've had a couple of years, obviously, with it, that we're starting to see the benefits of it, for sure.
There'll be ebbs and flows,
Yep.
to Commissioner Cleary's point, but there'll be highs and lows, but there won't be as significant as they were in the past. Interest rates are averaging between 3.6% and 5%, depending on factors, rating and what our rating is, how long is the debt. All this is to give you kind of the idea of what the economy is doing. I've gone over this multiple years now. There's a different fund types that we have. A lot of people don't seem to understand government accounting, and that's different. It's different. It has its own rules and standards, and one of the key things is it has funds. We have something called governmental funds. And so I usually present this at Citizens Academy, and I kind of describe what the theory is behind all of this. And the idea is to understand that governmental funds are more what we call non-exchange transactions, which means taxes and less fees, but more tax-based. And then you have enterprise funds, which are kind of more of what we call exchange transaction, which means that you get a service for a fee. So it's pretty direct. There's no taxes, usually no taxes involved, and usually it's one for one. Kind of like buying a service. That's why they're called enterprise or business type funds. So that being said, one key thing I want to make sure we are clear is that there's different kinds of expenses. Everybody wants to look at each line item and look at each individual expense, but there's key to understanding this. The two ongoing costs that we always are very careful with are the personnel and the just general operating costs that we incur every single year. Anytime we add into that, we're anticipating that cost is probably going to be perpetual and only going to grow with inflation. That's how accounting, budgeting and accounting works. There's other costs, such as one-time costs, which are what they sound like, one-time costs, which means you buy something, you probably don't have to purchase it for a number of years, or you will have to plan for it further in the future, but not currently. And those are the kinds of things, and some things don't even come back ever. And so those are the things that we're a little bit more or less concerned with when we're looking at things, and more focused on things that impact future budgets and future revenue sources. And same kind of concept with capital projects. They're multi-year costs potentially, but they're still one-time in nature. If you build a police station, you're not going to build another one for a very long time. And so we had to, based on House Bill 1176, we did have to change our method. Used to be where we'd say, okay, there's expenditures, here's what our non-property tax revenues are, okay, here's how much we have to assess, and if we don't want to assess that, then we have to reduce our costs, our expenditures. In this situation, we kind of had to change things, because we said, look, we're capped at this amount. This is what our House Bill 1176 calculation is. Here's our number. Now we got to go back and say, okay, well, what's our other revenues? Okay, add those together. Okay, well, then now, does it match our expenditures? Well, if it doesn't, then we got to cut our expenditures. And that's just, we changed how we look at things, even though, we never try to increase taxes in the past. And enterprise funds work kind of a little bit differently, because you're dealing with long-term capital projects like water treatment plant expansion and those kind of things, where you have the operating costs, you have the capital project cost, and then you have to focus on future project costs that you're not yet anticipating, but they're 5-10 years down the line. You got to be able to be ready to have enough cash flow and financing to fund those types of projects. And then obviously that's where you can borrow debt, and those things all have to play into how we determine it, and then that's how you determine how much fees you need. I don't know if you want to touch on this, Commissioner Cleary, but
I certainly can. Like I said, it felt more like a maintenance year where we're trying to like shore up and make sure that we're not going over our operations budgets in certain areas. That inflation adjustment for certain budgets within police, within roads and streets, and a couple others where we're looking at line item by line item, seeing what we budgeted last year, where we were actually at, and making sure that we're more realistic and that we're providing the numbers that are needed for those services. One of the other big things that you're going to see is the police software for Axon. This was a big conversation. There was a couple different police meetings that happened where we went over it. It is probably described as software. It's AI related, but the goal with a lot of the programs within Axon are to really help the police force, streamline efficiencies and kind of create the most efficient version of their work. So it should, in long term, help with growth. If your FTEs are more efficient, hopefully you're adding them at a slower rate. It hopefully should have some effect on overtime, that sort of thing. But the reason that we're adding it this year is that getting in on it at a certain time frame does also give us a cost benefit. So we were able to start the program at the right time, where now we are able to kind of reap the benefits long-term of the program by starting it now. So that was a big line item, and it will be an ongoing cost, but there's a huge benefit to it for the police force. We did have 2 fire trucks added that were part of the fleet plan. And as you can see, there's kind of just an ongoing list too. We'll get to, I think there's other slides where we're going to break down the new positions, what was asked for and what we were able to fund. So, Dimitri, you want to add anything else there? Or Commissioner Risch?
I've got a question. You've got enterprise funds up there, then below it, it's the police and fire stations. They wouldn't be enterprise
I think
funds.
Dimitri put those under there because they are not going to be funded with property tax. Am I saying that correct?
Yeah, and I apologize, Commissioner Risch, you are absolutely right. I think
they're not
definitely
enterprise
should be on.
funds, so they probably shouldn't be listed there. But they, the potential, or well, not potential, that the new fire station and the new police station that'll eventually come will be funded with sales tax dollars primarily. So so they don't fall under the governmental funds necessarily, or maybe they do, but they're under sales tax. They're not under property tax. But no, they're not part of enterprise funds.
And I'll just point out, the fire station will be paid for our reserves, but future fire stations will be paid probably by sales tax, Commissioner Risch, to your point. My apologies on that error, but overall, we had basically what we call a balanced budget. The reason you see, if you look at the 26, our revenues went up slightly to 71 million, and our operating expenses went up to 68 million. And then this is just kind of a quick summary of where we're at. And then you see kind of a bit of a projected loss of 1.4 million, and that's mainly because we have fire trucks that were ordered, I think 2 or 3 years ago, and then they're finally now arriving after 26 months or whatever was the time frame. So there's 2 of them, and then they're basically going to be used in our reserve, along with our equipment reserve that we usually utilize to purchase, do replacements of laptops and different IT-related items. So just pretty quick, I'm just going to brush over this. I really haven't changed this slide, too significantly in the past, because from the past. Really, just the House Bill 1176 was implemented. Our property taxes is 52% of our general fund revenue. That's pretty consistent with the previous year in terms of ratios. And then we have other state aid and grants that we receive. That's how general fund operates. It's not just property tax. There's other things. There's other 48% of something else that funds it. Usually with the $9.8 million from sales tax that was ballot approved in 2018, I believe they modified it slightly to be exactly 9.8 million. So that supplements the property tax. And as far as expenditures, I always want to point out that public safety makes up 56% of the general fund. So it's way more than the $36.8 million that we have in property tax. So just to give everybody understanding that property tax is not the only thing that funds the general fund, and it's generally not enough anyway. There's a couple of things in our reserve that I usually want to point out, and we've talked about this last year, things that we have upcoming that we want to anticipate in the general fund. I'm purely talking about general fund here, about different costs and things that potentially could impact the city. Obviously, we have the police station, we have several other things, and I would look at the ordinance, when the budget ordinance is up, I would look for the city commission to approve a commitment towards these projects unless you have any concerns or issues with these. And then I'm going to jump right into sales tax. So we have our original 1%, which is restricted for those three items there, which, and then we have the 0.5%, which is for specific arterial streets and construction, reconstruction. And then we have a Measure 1 that was recently approved in 2024, which is a 0.5%, 60% of which can be used for public safety, specifically building police and fire stations, acquisition of police and fire emergency vehicles, and costs associated with the use of the Burley Morton Detention Center. It's pretty specific. And the other 40% of this sales tax is used for public transportation for providing reliable service for disabled, elderly, and socioeconomic challenged residents. I show a little bit of a forecast here. I kind of want to show a little bit of a graph. It's pretty consistent if you look. This is kind of the sales tax, the 1% sales tax that doesn't have a sunsetting portion on it, that's been here for a very long time. It's pretty consistent. There's really no concerns with the sales tax at this time. We forecasted at a pretty conservative rate of 2%, I think 2% growth, so it's pretty good. And then, when it comes to Measure 1, this is the transit portion of it. There was $1 million that I believe the City Commission's already committed towards covering the losses and operations of the Bismarck Transit. And so that's where that blue line comes in the middle, where it basically says this $1 million is already committed for a purpose. And then the rest of the money needs to be allocated based on the approval of the City Commission and the Transit Steering Committee that the city has, Bismarck Transportation Steering Committee the city established. There's a City of Mandan portion to this, I believe, and they have their own process of how they allocate that money. But again, that is something that will come up during the year. And as far as sales tax forecast for the public safety portion, we're anticipating that there will be a build of a police station at some point north of $80 million. And so there'll more than likely will be a revenue bond associated with this. The city does not have that kind of cash to fund this operation direct, with cash. So it'll have to be some sort of debt issuance in the future. And on top of that, if we also included a projection for any potential for a fire station. And so the bars show kind of what the reserve looks like, what the collections look like, and the line kind of shows what the debt will look like over time. Any questions before I move on? Okay. Silence is acceptance, so I'm moving on. Street lights, this is something we look at annually. There's really nothing unusual here. They plan wide conductor and feed point replacement program. They replace traffic signals. They have a plan that's in place that Public Works tries to manage every single year. There's really not a whole lot of changes to it. However, the cost of the streetlights have increased quite a bit.
I was going to say the same thing. When you talk about inflation and meeting with Paul, the inflation on especially like the large streetlights is immense. It's like so much bigger than regular inflation. But on the upside, the way that they're making them now, they will last a lot longer. And then also with our LED program, as well as just making sure that we're monitoring it annually, we really are able to maintain it with a pretty minimum increase as long as we just continue to have that discussion annually. So it is kind of wild to look at the inflation, like when you look at what he was saying he was paying for them even 5 years ago to what they are now is just like kind of crazy. But so far we have been able to maintain it with just minimal fee increases, and the LED project helps bring that cost down too. So.
And now we're going to move on to the real enterprise, enterprise funds, which are basically those fee-based funds that provide some sort of service and it's charged based on a fee. Water fund, we use a Stantec model they provided us with the study several years ago, and so we looked at that model. We projected out based on information we have today on the potential projects. I worked with our new utility operations director who took over the model. Kudos to him for kind of grabbing that complicated Excel sheets, I should say, and really updating that information, making sure it's accurate or as close to accurate as possible, even though we're planning out, 5 to 10 years in advance. But we felt that a 3% increase is due at this time, just based on, discussions with Commissioner Zenker, Commissioner Cleary, and looking at information that was presented to us. We felt that it was prudent to just stay consistent with inflationary rates that are happening, and so when we get to those years of when the project needs to be completed, that we're not unprepared, that we have enough money on hand, or we can at least bond or do some sort of debt issuance in order to and then have enough money to cover that debt service moving forward. So that is, it's fairly consistent with what the inflation rates are today. The water treatment plant expansion is continuing, and then there's other projects that are going on in the water fund that just have to be completed. And similar to that sewer fund, we continue to increase. I think last year we increased 2.25% to stay with the same inflationary costs and anticipating future projects. We are trying to stay ahead of compliance on things, and so it's very important that we stay on top of these just slight increases and not trying to overwhelm anybody's budget, just trying to maintain and move forward. And like I mentioned before, kind of with the fleet plan, when you have these sort of slight increases over time, they create a much more manageable situation when it comes to things that happen or projects that, especially large dollar, multi-million dollar projects that need to happen to comply with regulations. And there's several projects, Hay Creek Lift Station and flow equalization clarifier rehab project, which is still going on and continuing. Solid waste, kind of very similar situation. There's really no significant change from the year before. There's a couple of new projects that have started that we've been anticipating. Their costs may have gone up a little bit more, Commissioner Cleary, I don't know if you recall exactly, but I believe which required us to increase our rates slightly.
Yeah, it's a pretty minimal increase, due a little bit to projects going on, but then also just a little bit with inflation and maintaining the level of service. So it's not anything, it's very similar to last year, I feel like. And then, the event center has been a big discussion this year.
just want to, generally, it's hard for us to really anticipate what would happen with the event center this year with all the changes that are happening and a potential management company that might come in. In the past, we've approximated a loss between $400,000 and $1 million, depending on the situation, depending on what was happening, depending on the economy, and just looking back towards COVID even, But we're looking at an estimated loss between $800,000 and 1.3, and we're just being conservative, extra conservative, knowing, not knowing what's going on, having a huge unknown this year, and potentially into next year to really determine what is going on. And I later on I kind of give a history of what happened, which is, kind of been consistent with what I've presented in the past. I haven't really changed those slides, but really, there was an SVOG grant, which is a COVID grant to help all the shuttered venues at the time. There was about $3 million, $3.4 million. We used all of it was used to shore up the event center and any losses they've incurred in the last couple of years. It's finally run out, last year, and so we need another source of revenue. Or, who knows what will happen when there is a management company or whatever, whatever the future holds. So, and then there is a second portion to the event center, which is the liquor, lodge, and restaurant tax. Which is a 1% liquor, lodge, and restaurant tax on those particular items that's collected in the city, and this is basically only can be used for capital projects at the event center, and so it pays for the event center's $1.7 million debt, which was used, I believe, to build the exhibit hall in 2013, and then it also will be used to start projects to improve the event center, and it's a pretty old building, and it needs a lot of improvements that maybe cans have been kicked down the road, if you will, and so we have a consultant who has projected a plan on how to correct those. And so if you look at this chart, you see kind of the yellow bars are kind of the future expenditures that we'll have to have out of this fund that can be only used for capital to improve the event center. And then the blue bars are kind of the reserves along with what was going to be collected by the city. And at some point in 26, 27, 28, there will be a little bit of a dip, and we're going to go negative in our reserves in that fund. But we will recover subsequently because the revenue is strong enough that it'll recover us in the next couple of years. And the city has enough cash flow in order to basically give the liquor, lodge, and restaurant tax fund a loan for a small period, a few years, in order to get these improvements made and finally get the event center built up to speed on all their capital items. And I'll hand this one over to you,
Sure.
Commissioner.
So then we'll go through kind of, like I was saying earlier, the requests and recommendations that the Budget Committee reviewed for each department and that the directors went over with us. First being the salary planning, the Budget Committee this year is recommending an overall 5% salary increase. It addresses the 3% market adjustment to stay up to date with inflation. Based on compression study in 2023, the city established a plan to maintain a 2% merit on top of the market adjustment per year. The 5% is very similar, if not the exact same, as to what we did last year. It's when we talk about the study that was done, it's necessary as a way to help us best combat the compression that employees can experience, trying to attain that midpoint by 10 to 15 years of employment, but then also just making sure that we remain competitive. There's certain areas, certain departments, as you guys know, that it is hard to remain competitive with private sector, with the state, et cetera. So we're just making sure that we're doing our best attempt of remaining competitive as well. So that's where we're at with that. Next, we'll go through these are all going to break down on different slides, but I just wanted to point out kind of the requested versus the recommended. Obviously, cuts had to be made. FTEs are a big one because, like Dimitri said, they are an ongoing cost that we're going to see into the future. So it started out at 12.5 requested, and we landed on 6.5 in our recommendation. But I think the next slides will break that down for you. Showing you the different departments. The one that I thought was definitely worth highlighting is we had a big conversation about the HR department. There's 2 FTEs being added to the HR department this year. When we talk statistically on numbers, the size of the city as an entity, as an employee number, comparative to the HR department and the lift that they make for those employees, when you compare it to other entities that are the size of ours, our HR department is wildly small, and they are making a huge lift. And so this was really, really needed for Leanne and her team to be able to kind of fully do their job. So that was kind of a big one this year for us, I think. And then moving on to the ongoing costs. You requested was a little over 1.5 million. Recommended is just a little over 1.4 million. So we were able to, like I said, we talked a lot about kind of making sure that the companies or that the entities have, whether it's mostly within that general fund, but the operating budgets, ensuring them up to make sure that they're more accurate and that they're not overspending over those budgets that were in place in previous years. So you can see those dollar amounts broke down, fire department, police department, and roads and streets kind of being your big 3 that we needed to really take a look at and make sure that their operating budgets are functional for them. Axon is on there. That's that Draft 1 program, the ERA Leaders program. Like I said before, it's a lot of AI programming software that the police officers have been trialing and will now get to utilize as a way to help with their anything from report writing to the Axon is kind of an ongoing software that they use. It's all tied to our body cams and basically any of your other like technology that the police force is using, so it all operates together. And so this program will kind of sync all of that up and hopefully, like I said, create a system where they're being as efficient as they can be, which in theory should help us when we're looking at, FTEs needed for growth or overtime. The more efficient they can be, the better when it comes to that stuff. So there was one-time asks of fire truck replacement that was on the fleet plan, and then a new fire truck engine for Fire Station 6 were kind of your 2 big one-time asks. There is a roof replacement that will be happening at Fire Station 1 and a couple other things, and then those event center things that have already been talked about as well. Solid waste has an HVAC replacement in 2 buildings, and a couple other projects that we went over with Steve and Toby. There was a lot on this list for Public Works and for Fire and Police. Again, they're kind of the 3 big ones where their operating budgets are quite large, and so just trying to make sure that we are taking care of the things that need to be taken care of and not pushing too many things down the road, but then also making sure that we're not overspending and leaving other things short. So capital project costs. Obviously, we've talked about the future police station, the Fire Station 6, and then there is street repairs, maintenance, and constructions listed on there. And the street light replacements, Paul kind of has those set up on a schedule, so he does a certain amount every year and has them planned out for, it seems like decades. So at a certain point, the pace might have to get quicker, but right now we're just maintaining on his schedule. So that's what those are. And then the utility projects, you see that expansion project for the water treatment plan that we have discussed and a couple other things. That is fast tracking through all of that, so Dimitri and I are definitely happy to answer any other questions you might have on any of the one-times, the FTEs, the ongoing, anything. I know this PowerPoint feels like we threw a lot at you. You should have had he had all the reports in the agenda, so hopefully you were able to comb through them at your own pace and not have to look at them at the rapid fire pace I just went through. But any other questions on anything specifically?
Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Mayor.
This is a preliminary budget, and I think we'll have opportunity to digest it further before we have the public hearing in September and look at what we need to do. So I would move that we accept this as the preliminary budget because it's the top of the line, and we may still see some adjustments.
All right, we have a motion.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Commissioner Zenker.
I just want to add that, I like the budget. You're right, it's a maintenance budget, but we still got to figure out my number one priority.
1176.
Yes, we have to figure that out. It's got to be, to Commissioner Rish's point, it's got to be explained better. It's got to be, the citizens got to know what the heck is going on, because to be honest with you, I don't think we really do. I mean,
Commissioner
the way I understand it versus, Dimitri and I, we could go back and forth for a few things. We're gonna need some beer too. But we can have that discussion and do what we want. But I think we're both to the same point. We understand the 3%, but I don't think it's communicated the way the intent was from legislation.
And I think
that's my point.
Sounds like the mayor has a concept that he wants to run by Dimitri, and maybe we can all have that conversation. I think maybe we need to figure out what that looks like as far as the county, because they're presenting, they're the ones that send out the tax bill. So we probably need to loop them in at some point, and even if there needs to be another conversation had with the state level as to how they really are expecting us to deal with this, with this law versus obviously the state laws that are around assessing and Board of Equalization, and how we merge all of that together and make it make sense for our citizens. So I think we can certainly continue those conversations, but I think we need to get other people included in them, probably at the county level at some point, just to make sure that whatever we're passing on to them is understood. But we do have a motion and a second. Mayor, did you have more to add to that?
My only point is again, this is to pass a preliminary budget. I agree with Commissioner Zinker. We need to figure out how we're going to actually handle the dollars and how that's going to land with everybody's own tax statement, at least as it relates to the city of Bismarck. But I think we have the next month basically to accomplish that, and I don't know. I mean, we have to come up with our plan ultimately when we pass the budget, how we'd like to see our dollars collected, or how they're landing per property.
Right.
And then we got to communicate that.
Correct. Okay. We do have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? Go ahead and call roll.
Commissioner Zenker?
Yes.
Commissioner Connolly?
Yes.
Mayor Schmitz?
Yes.
Commissioner Risch?
Yes.
Chair Clary?
Yes. Thank you, Dimitri.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Commissioners.
Next is item I. Consider the recommendation from the city administrator to hire the new police chief. Jason.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Mayor, Commissioners. Apparently I'm here to present the worst kept secret in the city of Bismarck. But before we do that, I do need to echo some of the remarks that were shared about Chief Dreyevich as he spends his final days with this organization. I've had the privilege of getting to know him over the last several years. Dave was hired as the chief after I was hired as the assistant administrator, so much of my time has been spent with Dave as chief. And I just echo everything that people have said about his commitment to this organization, this community, Dave is a very humble guy, but he definitely deserves a lot of credit for the department that he's leaving behind. Some of the accolades that will go along with his time here, some of the things that I will remember. During Dave's time, we transitioned into a much more embracing, we embraced technology within the police department much more than we did when he was here, and we've tried to find ways to augment additional staff using technology and the resources. We spent a good bit of time just now talking about Axon and what a critical tool it has become for a force multiplier for our police department. So I think those are some of the things that we can't lose sight of. But at the same time, we also need to talk about the process that we went through to get to this point where we are, where I'm about to make a recommendation on the new chief of police for the city of Bismarck. As you know, we had a number of applicants that went through the process. There were a few steps along the way where we were able to evaluate their answers, their performance, and just some of the data that we have in front of us to help cut down to the point where we had 2 face-to-face interviews. The Tribune did a nice job covering the 2 candidates. We've got an in-house candidate with 25 years of experience, and he's done just about everything in the organization as far as the police department is concerned, and a very qualified candidate from an outside organization. With that in mind, some of the things that I learned along the way when considering a new chief, there would be a time to look for more of the same. When you've got a stable department, you've got a department that is doing very well, it's excelling, and it's very well respected and supported by the community, that would be the time where you would be looking for more from a new chief, more of the same. If we had a department that was struggling and going through changes and turmoil, that would be a time where we would be looking at a fresh face and somebody from the outside to help create a new culture and a new course. I'm very pleased to say that we are not in the situation of the latter that I described. We are in a situation where we have a very strong police department, and I, as the city administrator, am looking for more of the same leadership. And with that, I am proud to recommend that Jason Stugelmeyer be the next chief of police for the city of Bismarck. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them for you. I believe he may be here along with some of his supporting crew as well. I don't know if you want to pull him up here and get him to say anything. He didn't wear his interview suit. He did tell us that he bought a special suit just for the interview and 2 other special occasions along the way, but I don't think he's got that on tonight, but it looks like he's in uniform over there. But if you have any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them for you. Commissioner Risch and Mayor Schmitz were both part of the process. Commissioner Risch, you did a fine job leading the face-to-face interviews with the 2 candidates. Appreciate your involvement with that. Mayor Schmitz, he was also part of the process to hire Michael Mart, who is the Public Works Utility Operations Director. Kind of a little different process than we've done in the past for hiring department directors, but I appreciate the support and the trust that you've all provided along the way. And with that, I will stop talking.
Any questions for Jason or for Jason? Commissioner Risch.
I'll just say I was part of the interview process. We're really fortunate. We've got somebody with 24 years of experience, worked virtually every position in the department. I've worked with him the last 13 months or 12 and a half months. Very responsive every time I've interacted with him. So I wholeheartedly supported this recommendation and think we're making a good move.
Great.
I'll make a motion to accept the recommendation of Jason Stugelmeyer as the chief of police.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Go ahead and call roll.
Commissioner Connolly?
Yes.
Mayor Schmitz?
Yes.
Commissioner Risch?
Yes.
Commissioner Zanker?
Yes.
Chair Cleary?
Yes. Motion approved.
Congratulations.
You've been waiting for this since, I don't know, maybe last week. I was hoping somebody was gonna adjust something, but.
Hey, I tried, no one seconded my motion. It's happened to me before.
No, I'd like to say I am very honored to serve as the next chief of Bismarck. I grew up here. I raised 3 kids here, one of which is here today. I don't know how my wife got her here. She's a college student. So she's probably pretty irritated. I did have a 40-page PowerPoint ready, and when Dimitri got to page 2, I was like, I can't do it now. I don't know what to do. But no, I'd like to thank Chief Dreyevich for setting the department up the way he did. and being very supportive with the staff, and we're all able to fill in shoes that are leaving the department. So with that, I graciously accept. And I would like to thank my wife specifically, because when you are a police officer, we're not the only ones that miss family, vacations, Christmas, Thanksgivings, birthdays. So she did this with me, and I hope I got many more years to go here. So, no, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Congratulations. Okay. Item J, consider the request to discuss the ETA topics for the upcoming August 5th, 2025 meeting with Burley County. Jason, you want to give us an update of sorts?
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. So the intent of the discussion tonight is to give all of you the opportunity to express your expectations, desires, preferred outcomes from the combined meeting with Burley County that is set for August 5th. I do need to report this similar topic was on the agenda for Burley County Commission yesterday when they met for their regular meeting of the month. They met at 8:30 yesterday morning in this room. Although this topic was on their agenda for discussion, it was not discussed. Commissioner Steve Bakken had placed it on the agenda. But unfortunately, Commissioner Bakken was not able to attend the meeting, and the general consensus was to forego the discussion and to bring it back at the next regular county commission meeting. Auditor Splonskowski informed the county commission that their next regular meeting would occur after August 5th. Unfortunately, they never came back to the topic, and so I cannot share with you what the intentions or the expectations are of Burley County because they did not discuss them, nor did they establish them. So with that in mind, I would certainly entertain any of the ideas and discussion points that you have as commissioners, but you may consider foregoing that August 5th meeting and allow Burley County a little more time to collect their thoughts and organize their intentions, so everybody has very clear expectations of what the meeting should look like going forward. But with that, I believe Commissioner Connolly had prepared some remarks. Those were printed at your table. You should all have those for review, but I am here more so to take notes and come back with information. So our Community Development Department staff, our engineering staff, our public works staff all have the appropriate marching orders and information that they should be gathering prior to this meeting whenever it may be held. So with that, I will stand and take notes and offer any answers that I can.
All right, so I mean, certainly we can have an open discussion as to what we are hoping to have happen on the August 5th meeting, if we even want to give Jason some direction on agenda items, topics that we want to make sure are discussed. Obviously, to his point, if we want to do that, we're going to be moving forward with the August 5th meeting with kind of a one-sided agenda because they are not going to have the opportunity to do the same as we're currently doing before then. So,
Madam,
go ahead, Mayor Schmitz.
Madam Chair. So during the, I think it was July or June or both actually probably meeting of the joint commissions meeting, the primary agenda item for the first meeting was actually to be an educational process whereby both planning and zoning departments and related departments would educate everybody as to what the ETA rules are and who has jurisdiction and how they apply, and then further how any of the ordinances, whether it be building or zoning, are different between the two municipalities, because there are some differences, and that was going to be the primary thing. And then obviously there will be public comment, but we'll take that, and then there probably would be another meeting of both groups jointly together where further discussion would happen, where maybe we would be looking at some changes to what the ETA boundaries might look like, or other matters that we can try to address to accommodate some of the concerns that exist from some of the residents in the ETA. I was hopeful that Commissioner Bachman would have had the opportunity yesterday to have that discussion a little bit with the county commission, but that didn't happen. I don't know if I want to really push it off, because if we can have that initial meeting where it's kind of informational.
Sure.
Because otherwise I'm just afraid we're going to push this down the road and.
Well, and we've already set the date and we know everybody can be there, so. I mean, I guess that would be a concept. Go ahead, sorry.
That is my expectation of what would come out of that first meeting.
Okay. So it would be more of, at least the direction to staff would be that we're looking that August 5th would include a presentation. I'm assuming staff has Commissioner Connolly's remarks too, because some of that is included in there when he talks about providing examples of maps, et cetera, so that we can really have a full understanding of the ETA and the differences, and then have a public comment period at that, after that presentation. And then with the hopes of potentially addressing some of the concerns at that meeting, but also scheduling an additional meeting where we could dive into any specifics.
Or a group of people that are gathering commissioners to
Sure.
and distill it. I mean, whether it's all 10 of us or not, I guess we can decide that at that meeting.
Sure, but we can
That
use
was
the
my-
meeting for all 10 of us to have the presentation and to get all of the information that's needed.
Yes, that was my expectation. So others may have different expectations.
Okay, Commissioner Connolly?
Madam Chair, Commissioners, Mayor, I concur with you. I think it's vitally important that we have this discussion this year, because next year being an election year, positions might change. And setting a date and just going forward with it's important. And I'd stand for any questions as far as along the line. Listen to a lot of meetings. The reason why you see the lines on there, the darkened lines, is it's 3 examples of meetings over time that I've listened to, and they have some different dynamics. So we can have examples like an A, B, or C when the special assessment abeyance on how they get to that point. And it's several departments that would come up with those conclusions as far as those calculations, because it's in some cases a lifetime look back. And then also explaining like the impacts of the plumbing code and state laws.
Sure, so kind of just like overall, like a lot of these bullet points, I'm seeing a lot of like, we're wanting staff explanation on some very broad topics of the ETA, but a couple of like specific things too.
Well, like Dimitri's department has where they look at the calculations and the numbers and crunch, but stormwater and sewage to the water department has impacts, and then to a lesser degree, road projects and things.
Sure.
But those change over time. If there's a mill and overlay on property is benefiting, but it occurred sometime in between that portion, that's going to change that calculation a bit. So having some solid examples that can come into play is important, I believe.
Okay. Does anyone else have anything to add for Jason as far as staff direction? I think getting as much information to all 10 of us at once would be great. So if we can kind of lead with that August 5th meeting being more of a presentation, education on the ETA, how it's operating now, maybe what some of the primary hiccups are, and go from there.
Okay.
Seeing consensus of some sort, so. Is that
That,
good enough, Jason?
Madam Chair, Commissioners, yes, that works for us. With the mayor's reference to the Bismarck Burley Combined Commissions meeting that happens once a month, our office, city administration, takes the lead on the agenda preparation and the minutes for that. So we will do that again, but then share the information with the county auditor so he has the opportunity to do a similar agenda packet for their needs and post that for whatever regulatory requirements they would have. But I think I've got what I was hoping to hear this evening, and we will get an agenda posted within the next couple of days.
Perfect. Commissioner Connolly.
What would be a date that, like if you talk to the counter or the auditor, what would be a date that you would prefer the information in by so you could have it prepared for August?
Thank you for the question, Commissioner Connolly and commissioners. Typically, we strive to have our agenda packets posted to the city website 6 days before the actual meeting date. So if it's the first Tuesday in August that we're meeting, that would be Tuesday the 5th, we would be looking for information no later than the end of business next week, Tuesday, a week from today.
Thank you for that.
Yep.
Okay, we will move on then. Item K is consider the request to receive an update on discussions with Commissioners Connolly and Zenker and representatives on the proposed citizen-initiated Home Rule Charter Amendment. Gabe.
Hello, Chair Cleary, Mayor, and Commissioners. Here to provide us an update of what we've done so far as staff in terms of engagement and coordination with the citizen group, as well as Commissioner Connolly, Commissioner Zenker regarding a proposed Home Rule Charter amendment. We have met with this group be twice now. Once, I guess, after the June 10th meeting where the Commission gave the blessing to engage with this group. We met then on June 18th and again on July 11th. Our goals in those conversations have been to better understand the intent behind what some of that draft language was there so that we could provide some input as to what that means. The words might have said something, but the intent might have meant something else. So we've had a couple of good discussions, I would say, so we can at least clarify some of those pieces. Our most recent meeting on July 11th, we left with maybe a diverging path, or potentially. Commissioner Zenker wanted this on the agenda to be able to address maybe some of the things that he would like to see as part of any half-cent sales tax extension discussion that we put out to the voters. And so that's why we brought it here before the board today to have that discussion.
Commissioner Connolly.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, Mayor, Gabe, appreciate you meeting with us. Yeah, the last couple of meetings have been very productive. The chair of the committee had a surgery and been recovering. There have been some wording updates, but still waiting to hear back from all of the committee and that. So that's where it's at. It's going to proceed to go forward. Think they're fairly comfortable with just going forward and submitting and getting it approved of so they can get signatures at this point. It's always been a two-part discussion, and that's where Commissioner Zenker, I believe we're going to talk about, is that there's been a long goal by several different people that have run for the city commission is trying to march forward to where we can for the most part, eliminate the special assessments. And the Special Assessment Task Force met for several years. It was combined out of the Infrastructure Task Force in 2017 where they combined. And that I was appreciative of that because that was part of the mix. And Commissioner Zenker bringing some of that information. And hopefully we can reconvene that task force so we can address both business and residential and further that conversation because special assessments are in some cases getting really, really high for people to add into their budgets.
Commissioner Zenker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So yeah, I mean the biggest difference between the two is one, I think from a city's perspective, we want to include the maintenance fees, so we can get rid of special assessments on the replacement, reconstruction, those types of things. This has nothing to do with green space. As we talked about our budget today, we know there's going to be constraints in the future, and I think this is a way for Gabe to take his engineering team and dive into that budget and figure out what projects we need to do. And just go do it, just like we do in the water side of the public works. We don't ask for permission to go do things. We just fix it and move on. You know, Michael, I'm sure, has been drowning in that fire hose ever since he got that position. So he gets it and the new things that pop up. So here's what I think we should do, and I'm hoping that we can get a consensus from the commission. I think since it's my portfolio, and I'll play the portfolio card that myself and the mayor, since he was on the previous task force, Brendan Nagel from the chamber, and then a person who was very, and I haven't talked to any of these people, by the way, this is just me just making stuff happen. And then Kevin Strage, he was very instrumental in that. I think the four of us get together and come up with a little bit of a game plan, and then come back with the infrastructure task force, and then move forward. We need to figure out some stuff, right? We need to figure out how we can pass the sales tax and not have it sunset, because it's a critical tool for what we've done the last 6-7 years, and then how it ties together with our utility fee, and then what amount of dollars that we need for that, because we really haven't had that discussion as to the funds that we need, and then that we make sure that we do other parts of that process to pay for other specials, or however that works out, right? It's a hodgepodge of stuff that we got to figure out, and then move forward with that.
Okay. So am I understanding correctly that there's kind of like two plans going on still, that Commissioner Connolly and his team, that's more of like the citizen initiated?
Yep.
And so that's going to continue, but what you're talking about would be more of like a city-led concept,
Yes.
more based on infrastructure and kind of extending that half-cent sales tax.
Correct.
'Kay.
Let's dust off the notes.
Yep.
Put Gabe and Tamanik and a few of us together, and a smaller group, and then open it up to infrastructure, because there's some good things that came out of that. Projects, do we want to get approval for projects, or how do we want that to work? And I think we need to write some critical keys down,
Sure.
and then bring it back to the commission.
Okay.
And Commissioner Zinker, I know you threw, I'm more than happy to be a part of that, because I was a part of it before, and you and I have had this conversation already. So I'm ready to go.
Gabe, do you want us to have a motion to put that group together, or is consensus okay and they can just move forward?
Mayor and Commissioners, Commissioner Cleary, Chair Cleary, I guess I don't need an motion. This is be directed by you all in terms of what you want us to do. Maybe some clarity on our engagement with the citizen group would be good to know. Should we continue that? Should we not? I don't have a strong opinion one way or the other. It sounds like, Commissioner Connolly, that at some point you will just be finalizing the language anyway and moving forward. So I don't know if you still want that engagement, but maybe add another piece just to clarify here too.
Sure. I guess
I guess I'm at the information impasse. I would have to talk to the committee at that point. So, but at this time, they were going to go forward with the wording, but this is new information, so it'll change the discussion a little bit.
So I think at this point, it maybe makes more sense to let them come to you with questions. I don't know if there needs to be more meetings. It sounds like the meetings were productive, but they now have a path forward, so we can let them do their thing. Obviously, citizens can ask staff questions as they see fit. We can leave it at that, I think, at this point.
That would work for me.
Okay, and then I think seems like there's consensus that we'll let Commissioner Zenker and yourself and the other people he listed try to come up with something on our end. Sound good?
Sounds good.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gabe. Okay.
Hey, you gotta pick that up once in a while. Do you hear that screeching? Oh, it just scares the crap out of me. I'm a pretty big guy too, and I like it.
Okay. That brings us to other business. Does anyone have anything for other business before we adjourn? Okay, doesn't look like it. So we are adjourned.